I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go. Welcome. Today is a difficult case, and the defendant decided to testify. This case involves at least one young child. She was 3 years old at the time. She likely witnessed this event. And I do just want to mention some of the testimony of some of the other witnesses before diving into his testimony, mostly from day 5. I will just mention some highlights, some things that he said from day 4, and then we will go right into day 5. I also plan to leave some time because opening statements will be happening now. And so please, no spoilers from opening statements. We will hop over to opening statements by around 10:30, 10:45 or so. All right. So if y'all have any general questions as we go, please let me know. But Dustin Duren is on trial for the capital M of the mother of his 2 children. And he is alleging that she was trying to kidnap the kids and keep them from him. And I'm telling you, throughout this entire testimony, throughout the way his lawyers described things, it sounded like a really bad custody dispute. And it never should have got to this point. And him testifying may have actually hurt his case a little, but I think he desperately wanted to tell his side of the story. He almost seemed pleased to be on the stand. At times, he does come across annoyed. And when he's talking about certain details, you could, to me, you could see some of the frustration that he had with his I guess ex-girlfriend, mother of his children, but the way that he describes things, it doesn't make any sense because his defense is that he did this to defend his daughter, that the mother was hurting the daughter by holding her and not allowing him to like take her out of the mother's arms, and because of that, he did what he did. It doesn't make any sense. Some of the other testimony that I wanted to mention, so there was a pediatrician that evaluated the kids. Let me take one step back and say, so this incident happened February, I believe 29th, and all of this and after immediately after this event, he gets in the car and drives, and he takes the kids and drives. I don't believe he had their car seats because when he was apprehended, so he had a 3-year-old, and then the youngest child was an infant, but she wasn't restrained in a regular car seat either. So he does all of this, and there is an Amber Alert. Somebody recognizes him at Applebee's, and or like around Applebee's, and he is apprehended at Applebee's. He does give a statement to the police, and he's going to say that he did this because he didn't use the word justified, but like he didn't feel he did anything wrong. And Oy. So his testimony starts with the fact that he has a history of depression, trauma, and combat PTSD. He does have a history of a psychiatric hospitalization for a self-unaliving attempt. And he was while he was living in Vegas. He says that his depression improved after the birth of their first child, but so that's where the mental health professional in me, it made it seem as though this child saved him, and he might have put a lot of his own mental stability on this child, and that shouldn't. Now it's different when your children give you purpose, you see the world in a new way, but then the idea of the mother taking this child from him when really they didn't have a custody agreement. And at the time, on the stand, he's going to say that he would have agreed to about 50-50. But he also said that he didn't want their family to be torn apart and that he thought kids should have two parents. I think he sat in jail and thought about how he wants to be perceived. I really, really think he has. And I think he would say that he wasn't angry, but we all fear, we all feel the anger and, like, just the rage, but it's like a quiet rage, which is scarier to me than, like, not the person that's screaming and yelling, but the person that's, like, menacing on the inside and might do something on impulse. That's how. So let me give my disclaimer now. I'm a psychologist. I'm not his psychologist. I'm saying this based on publicly available information, based on viewing his testimony, and the jury is going to be the ultimate deciders of, does this meet criteria for defense of another, or was this just rage, anger? Did he just do this thing and there is no justification for it? Because the thing that, because they're trying to make him sound like he's this combat marine that was trained to, when there's a threat, to neutralize the threat immediately. He lives his life on yellow, and like yellow meaning he's always on alert to possible danger. But even if a person is living their life that way, you can't go into a bad argument. And so, trigger warnings, he pew-pewed the mother of his children while, so my understanding from his testimony yesterday was that the mother was holding the child, and that child is gonna tell the pediatrician. So once he was found, they took the kids to the ER just to be evaluated, and that 3-year-old said that her ears hurt and that daddy hurt mommy and me. So if I was on the jury, and his defense team tried to keep that statement out. His defense team really, really tried to keep that statement out, but the jury was able to hear that pediatrician's report, and the pediatrician documented the statement in the notes as well, that the child said, "Daddy hurt mommy and daddy hurt me." Because he's also charged with something related to the children. Oy, it is so, so, so sad. He's gonna talk about in the past while living in Vegas, and on cross-examination, the, prosecutor is gonna bring this up, that while he was living in Vegas, that somebody was banging on the door, and he got his weapon, and he didn't pew-pew the person. Like, the person, and he's gonna try to minimize it and be like, "Well, the person didn't come inside." And it's just he's not getting that you made this rash decision, and after the fact, because the way that he describes it, he's gonna say that he didn't even realize that it was Caitlin that he had, that's what he had done. That's what he's gonna try to say, and it just doesn't make any sense. And so he doesn't have, so Ali Abulabon came across scary, like malignant narcissist scary. Like, he came across like, ooh, like, it was, this guy came across like, if you just listen to things on the surface, you might kind of be like, "Huh," but then if you listen a little bit deeper, you would be very concerned. And so thank you so much for the comments about the hair. I got bored yesterday and I just decided to straighten it for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Sometimes I straighten it when I trim the ends, and that's not even like, I just got bored. It was in this weird, not curly, not straight phase, because I stretched the curls, but I stretched them too much, and it was in this weird. So I was just like, okay. Middle last night, I just decided to straighten it. We are gonna take a look at day 5. All right. Ooh. Okay. This guy comes across like a bit of he's not likable, okay? And we're gonna start at regular speed. At times, the court feed is a little bit difficult to hear. So we are gonna start at regular speed. Oh, let me see this one. He said that after unaliving, he left with the kids and they were all happy. Yes. He tried to say that he assessed the mental state, especially of the oldest, the 3-year-old, and he was like, she was fine. But she could likely be in a state of survival. She's currently with the man that did this to her mother, and like this is probably a very confusing situation for this poor child. And of course she so his even if he's remembering things correctly, and but the minute she met with a stranger, so as the once she was with the pediatrician, she said what happened, and she reported that daddy hurt mommy. And so it was just it was a lot. It was a lot. um and I do have resources in the description of this video because I do work with military vets. So when he talks about veterans living on like yellow in this high alert where they're always open to the potential of danger, all of those things, there are treatments, there are things to help a person because he interpreted a neutral so the situation did not require deadly force. It just didn't. And I don't think any jury is going to think that it did. I don't I think the jury is gonna convict him by the end of today. I'd they maybe tomorrow, but I think he's likely gonna be convicted. I don't know that for sure, but based on his testimony, to me, his testimony made it worse. It made it worse. Let me know, because the courtroom audio is a little bit low, and so if I need to lower my volume some so that I don't come in as hot, or I can try to boost the courtroom audio. All right. So this is day 5. Okay. So he's back on the stand. Once again, he looks so happy to be there, to be on the stand telling his story. And so we are going to play day 5.
To this particular proceeding. I have
Okay. So this is the judge giving some instruction.
instructed you to not avoid any exposure relative to any media coverage, but I would ask you.
Yep. He's just making sure that the jury hasn't seen anything, and they're all going to say no. So now this is uh Dustin's attorney is going to talk with him. There were times that I thought Dustin just went into this narrative. He would just keep talking. And the prosecution didn't object, but I don't think they thought what he was saying was helpful to his case. If anything, what he was saying him on. And so let me also make sure to plug in my Ethernet cord. Hey, so I try to hardwire into the internet so we don't pause. All right. So give me 1 second. Technology is so fun. If I lose y'all for a second, I'll be right back. I'm just making sure that because I've turned the Wi-Fi off for the Ethernet to connect. There we go. Okay. So let's get into his testimony. All right. And I'm going to interrupt. Links with no interruptions are in the description.
Dustin, where we left off yesterday, you had just returned from the library and eaten lunch. Can you tell me what happened after lunch?
So this was at the house. We were, well, Caitlin, Elwin, and Valen were all playing in the girls' room. And at that point, I'm just kind of working on things, like kind of getting stuff set up for the weekend and the following week. And then every so often, I would go to the room just to ask, hey, what's going on? Is Brenda picking you up here? Are we meeting her somewhere? Just what's the plan? What is going on?
Okay. And so Brenda testified, and Brenda does not like him. Like, if y'all saw Brenda's testimony, it was very clear that Brenda was not a fan of him, understandably, like, because like the way that he describes things is just, it's a lot. It really is a lot. Okay. So let me go on ahead and go back into this. He's going to just describe that he was so confused, but I don't think this is helping his case.
What did Caitlin say in response?
She was not responding. She was completely ignoring me, just kept playing with the girls. So about like every 15, maybe it was a half an hour, maybe every 15 minutes, a half an hour, I would come back and ask again, hey, what's going on? What is the plan? And she just kept ignoring me.
What did you think when she kept ignoring you?
So I don't know what's going on. So with backing up to what was happening prior to, again, she was saying that she didn't want to stay at the house, which is fine. But then all of a sudden Brenda isn't coming with us to the restaurant. She's not staying there. She wanted to come back to the house all of a sudden. I'm confused about what is going on. There's a lot going through my head. And one of the things that's in the back of my head, which is why I'm bringing up these stories in the first place, is that the last time she was ignoring me and not telling me what was going on was when she stole Valen out of Nevada.
And so the way that he describes that, okay, so the last time they were living in Nevada, one day, Caitlin decided to get on an airplane and she took their youngest out of state and without informing him. They do not have a formal custody agreement. And without a formal custody agreement, that's not her. Like, they need to go to court and get a formal custody agreement that sets limitations on what a parent can and can't do. That is what can happen. And so all of that, the way that he's describing this, and I think the jury might get that, because like, it just sounds like a really bad custody dispute. That's what this sounds like. And even if she was planning to leave with the girls, he would have to go to court to make it so that they would have a formal custody agreement, and neither one of them would be able to do that.
At some point, did you tell Caitlin that she couldn't stay in your apartment anymore?
Yes. So this is when I'm continually asking her about what's going on. I'm saying, hey, I said that you could stay the night, but you can't stay longer. So what is the plan? You can't stay here. What is the plan? Like, if I need to drive you all the way back to Hampton, fine, but I need to know what is going on.
What was the next thing that she did besides just ignoring you and playing with the girls?
So eventually, at this point, it was getting dark.
To me, the ignoring him, and to me that points towards him getting angry. Like, and him being upset. Like, that's what this points to. I don't think the girls were in any legitimate danger. This is just my thoughts. Remember, I'm not a part of this case. I'm just sharing my thoughts with the internet. I don't think his girls were ever in real danger. And if they were, he needed to call 911. He needed to settle it with, like, in the courts. It he didn't need to do what he did. And
And eventually, as I'm saying this, she finally gets up. She still hasn't said anything, but she finally gets up and goes to the couch in the living room. And she's on her phone. I don't know what she's doing. It looks like she's texting. So I'm thinking, okay, progress is being made. Like, okay, I'm assuming she's texting Brenda. Okay, she's figuring something out. Good, we're making progress here.
Sounds very
Did you ask her
controlling.
again what the plan was?
So after, again, I don't know how long this would have been, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But again, she wasn't saying anything. So I'm asking again, are you talking with Brenda? Like, what's going on? What's the plan? And she's still not saying anything. So at this point, like, I'm obviously pretty frustrated. At this point, I'm just saying, okay, you know what? You're not responding. We're clearly not getting anywhere here. So then I'm making the decision that then I'll drive you all the way back to Hampton. I'll drive you the 3 hours or whatever it is, all the way back there. But we need to leave now. You can't be here any longer.
So this is a really great point. So this is where sometimes when you gray rock somebody, it might become unsafe. I don't think she thought he would ever do what he did. And he's gonna say that he did it in a matter of seconds. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. But, like, and I'm glad the children, especially the 3-year-old, she did not have to testify. She d So that her statement came in through the doctor. Um Trying to get testimony from very young children can be difficult anyway. And the children, it's my understanding, share time between Caitlin's parents and his parents. He just sounds very controlling, extremely controlling. And it doesn't like it sounds because he's gonna try to say, I wasn't the problem. Like, he was the problem.
We need to leave now.
And what was going through your head at this point that you're telling her we need to leave now?
So again, I don't know what's going on. And again, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, oh, the last time that she wasn't communicating with me was in Nevada with Valen. And I don't know who she's texting. She's sitting on her phone. I don't know who she's texting. If, like, did people come to New Hampshire with her? I don't know. Was she texting other people to, like, come to the house and that's why she didn't want to leave? Like, I didn't know what was going on. I wanted her out of the house. I did not know the situation. I did not.
And so he does make it seem like Elowen is the golden child, the child that, like, you can just Elowen seems to be the child that he cares about the most. If she had taken Valen, if she said, "I'm taking Valen and leaving," I don't know that he would have gotten as upset. But I think he sees Elowen as the and so the Elowen is the older child, the one she was 3 years old at the time. It's almost as though he sees her as an extension of him, and taking her is, like, damaging him. It's a very in my opinion, like, it is not particularly healthy. And it comes out in his testimony, and he's saying this like it's normal, and it's not to me. Um, uh,
Know what was going on, but something was happening. Something was seriously wrong. I wanted to get out of the house.
And what did you do next?
So at this point, this is when I get Valen and I start putting her in the car seat. And so I'm putting her in the car seat in front of the kitchen, sort of at the doorway in front of the kitchen, also in front of the doorway to the bathroom, and it's in the hallway that leads outside to the garage. So I'm putting her in the car seat. At this point, Elowen she's still kind of playing in the room and going back and forth and seeing what we're doing. So at this point, she's out like, okay, we're going somewhere. So she comes out and she's standing behind me in the kitchen. And this is when Caitlin gets up from the couch, grabs Elowen, and then takes her back to the couch.
When she takes her back to the couch, how are the two of them seated?
So, yeah, after I finish buckling in Valen, then I go into the living room and I see, so Elowen's sort of straddling Caitlin's right leg. She's facing me, So like Elowen's legs are on the outside of Caitlin's right leg. And then she's facing out towards me. And at this point, just one arm, Caitlin has one arm around Elowen, like around her chest.
And what did you do when you saw Caitlin holding Elwyn from behind?
So I just started saying, hey, what are you doing? We need to go. And at this point, this is really to where this the first time she said anything in which she just said, no, I'm not leaving.
What did you do when she said, no, I'm not leaving?
So again, I start saying, no, we need to leave. We need to go. And at this point, I go up and I try to grab Elowen. And what ends up happening is she pulls back on Elowen and sort of yanks her out of
So I think we're getting close to the incident, just in case people are just so people are mindful of what's coming.
my reach, like away from me. So she yanks her back, and I immediately step back, going, whoa, 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 what is going on? What are you doing? Let Elowen go.
And so Caitlin
And when he said, "Whoa, whoa," does anyone believe he said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what are you doing?" I mean, does anybody think he actually said that? Like, to me, the story, what he's saying, now he's going to say that he takes, telling the truth on the stand incredibly seriously, blah, blah, blah. I Some of the way that he's describing things, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. His story just does not make any sense, and the person that could tell it, so Caitlin is not here to tell her story, and I hope and pray Elowen doesn't, but she likely has some memory, and I hope that she does some good trauma therapy. That's where EMDR or trauma-focused, cognitive behavior therapy, there are other therapies that you can do, after the fact, but this is you can never take away the fact she was there in her mom's arms when her father shot and killed her mother. Like, that's whoa.
yanks Elwyn back. How is she holding Elwyn at this point?
So at this point, just again this was with, I guess probably one arm at this point, but holding her across the chest and then like yanking her backwards.
And you said you let go. Why did you let go?
Because I couldn't hurt Elowen. I didn't want her to be hurt.
And is so strange to me, and there are other people like him that have said things like this. The fact he doesn't realize that killing her mother, like, that harms her in a significant way. And if you believe that Caitlin is a risk to the children, go to the courts, call 911. Good gosh. But even if he had called the police in that moment, because it doesn't sound like either one of them had broken the law, like, it sounds like a bad custody thing. It just sounds like a really bad custody dispute.
What did you do next after you let go?
So I'm really trying to ask, like, what is going on now? Like something is seriously wrong. What is going on? And this is where she first starts really talking, and where now she's making these
Oh, he's
demands for just a substantial amount of money that there's no
he sounds upset about that because he's gonna say she tried to get him to sell his car. I don't even know if any of this is true, but okay. But even if she was, that's not a reason to do what he did. None of this helps me understand what happened.
way that I could pay her. And I'm telling her this, like, I can't get you this kind of money. Like, I don't have this kind of money. I'm paying you what I can. I'm sending you what I can. I can't pay this. And then at this point, this is where she's saying, or now threatening, that then, oh, if I can't pay her, then she's going to say that I kidnapped Elowen from Minnesota without her permission, and that she was going to call the cops and have me arrested, and that then I would never see the kids again.
but none of even if she had done that, because they are both birth parents, and even if she had done that, but I think in his mind, he might say, "I wasn't thinking logically." I don't know what he would try to say, but there's no custody agreement, and he's the birth father, and, like, it just you can't do this. Go to court.
And just to be clear, had you kidnapped Elowen from Minnesota without Caitlin's permission?
No.
And what are you thinking at this point that you're hearing these threats?
So at this point, I think the best way to describe this, I think, is in like a Marine Corps color code system. So
Red, yellow.
it's like a situational awareness, like an internal radar system, but to where just naturally, just a normal person would just be in white. Like their radar is off. They're not like you're walking into a restaurant and you're not concerned with, like, you're not thinking about threats. You're thinking about like what's there.
So that's why I wanted to link something about veterans in this description, because what he's describing, I work with military veterans, I work with Marines, I work with individuals in the Army, Air Force, Navy, and both active duty and retired. And even police officers, first responders, people in these high, they're going into dangerous situations. Even when they are in a neutral situation, they will be assessing risk and threat all of the time. And so in my office, I let my clients pick where they sit, and my vets always pick facing my door, like always. And I tell them, so that's what and then other people, they can have their back to the door. They're not thinking about where, because even though the vet can see the door, to me, so I would sometimes prefer to be sitting with my back to the door, because that means I'm closer to the door if there was a threat. But a lot of veterans perceive things that way. So what he's describing, okay, yes, but the way he's applying it is not it's not good.
There to eat. But I think combat vets, probably police officers, I think can say the same thing, that they're probably going into a restaurant and they're just kind of aware of maybe suspicious people or suspicious things that are around, or they want to sit in a corner booth or with their backs against the wall so that they can visually see things. So that's just a natural yellow, like your radar's on a natural yellow.
Okay, so he's gonna get forward to where things are. I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit, because I do want to make sure we play a lot of the cross examination, because a lot of things fall apart on cross examination. Okay, so they're struggling back and forth for the oldest child.
And goes full bear hug. She's then squeezing Elwyn harder. She's yanking her away, like twisting her body and yanking her away from me. And two, she's putting her right foot up on the table. So her knee is up, and
And would somebody have memory of all of that? Okay, I guess if that's the worst part of the image, you might. I don't know. I don't know. Like, that's maybe okay, keep it going.
so Elwyn, being straddled on her leg, she puts her knee up, braces it on the table, and is also using her leg to pull Elwyn back away from me. And what just the big thing that happened here is Elwyn screaming, Elwyn yelling. And that was the point to
But, okay, Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist here. The reason that child was screaming could have been because her parents are arguing. And the prosecution is going to bring that part up. Like, he's assuming that Elowen is crying because Caitlin is hurting Elowen, but it's like, wait a minute, you're the one that's struggling for the baby. Like, he's not seeing his role in all of this. And once again, this is a jury of peers. And so we'll see what happens, but
where again, I let go after Ellen's scream. And I'm locking eyes with Ellen, and she's crying. She just let out this scream. And this is where, when I'm talking about the line was crossed, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
line.
Ellen now physically being hurt in front of me. And that was the line.
And what's going through your mind at this point?
that was the line where he decided that she needed to like, that does not make any sense to me, because he's not saying she was doing something, like, so they're tussling, they're both trying to get the baby. So just stop it. Stop it. Like, and there's a lot of assumptions on his end that he just knows how Elowen feels and what Elowen believes. And it's like, what in the world?
And you locked eyes with Ellen, and you can see that she's been hurt.
So then this is
From his perception.
probably the best way to describe this, again, is through this system, this color system, to where now I'm going from orange to red, to where I see
I don't understand.
an immediate danger. I'm seeing an immediate threat to Elwyn, and I have to take action immediately.
So that's where, my personal opinion, he reacted and did not respond in that situation, because that situation did not require deadly force. He could have called the police. He had already called the police when she threatened to report him for kidnapping before, and the police told him, and he this is in his testimony. Okay, he brought this up in his testimony, that he had called the police before, and they had told him, no, like, if she reported you for, like, you're the birth father, y'all don't have a custody agreement that says one parent can't take the child out of state, so we're not going to touch that. And it's just, and I'm gonna look, because when he's being asked questions by his attorney, he's looking down, but I don't know if he's in his mind prepared what he wants to tell the jury. Okay. So when you're thinking and you have something you want to say, like, it's almost, I think he has some things that he wants the jury to know. And so he's looking down for those points. It's my understanding on cross examination, because he doesn't know the questions. His lawyer was able to prepare him for this. He doesn't know what's coming on cross. We're going to keep it going for a little bit longer.
To save Elwyn. And that's what's
Oh, I also think individuals like him, or my assumption of the type of person he is, they don't want to be viewed as somebody that capital M'd their children's mother because they were mad, but I did it to save the child. Like, he's trying to make himself this martyr. Like, she was the victim and I was saving her. And it's like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah. Okay.
that's really what's going through my head. The single thing of, I have to get Elwyn out of this situation immediately.
What do you do?
So this is where I'm talking about, to where I say it's like,
Red.
it was like muscle memory. It was like training coming out, to where I didn't have to think
Don't be like that.
about what was happening. It was like, I was trained for this, and this is what I'm supposed to do. But I take then, and this is also, again, this is, like I said, it was really, really fast. The entire thing probably took like 3 to 5 seconds max. I take the 2 steps over, grab the gun. As I'm taking probably the 3 steps back over, I'm chambering around into the gun. I grab Elwyn by the shirt collar, the front of her shirt collar. I pull her forward, not to me. I pull her forward to get some sort of distance between her and Caitlin, pull her forward, and then fire.
Is Elowen still in Caitlin's arms when you shoot?
Yes.
What happens after you?
Guilty on all accounts. If I was on that jury, what? This made it worse for me. Y'all let me know in the chat. This made it 20 times worse. You did this while she was, because y'all just couldn't agree. She said she was going to take the kids. Okay. Okay. Like it doesn't make any sense. And it's not going to get better.
So immediately after I shoot, so I'm holding Elowen by the collar. She's, again, Caitlin is still bear hugging Elowen at this point, but the moment I shoot, that's when Caitlin releases. I pull Elowen fully into me, and I immediately run out the door and run to my car.
All right. So here we go. I'll play this part one more time.
I take the 2 steps over, grab the gun. As I'm taking probably the 3 steps back over, I'm chambering around into the gun. I grab Elowen by the shirt collar, the front of her shirt collar. I pull her forward, not to me. I pull her forward to get some sort of distance between her and Caitlin, pull her forward, and then fire.
Is Elowen still in Caitlin's arms when you shoot?
Yes.
What happens after you fire?
So immediately after I shoot, so I'm holding Elowen by the collar. She's, again, Caitlin is still bear hugging Elowen at this point, but the moment I shoot, that's when Caitlin releases. I pull Elowen fully into me, and I immediately run out the door and run to my car.
After you run to your car, what do you do?
So once I'm in the car, this is when, again, the very first thing I'm thinking of is I need to make sure that Elowen is okay. So we sit down in the car, and I'm just checking her over, like physically, to make sure that there is nothing wrong with her, that there's no physical injuries wrong with her. I'm like checking through her hair to make sure that there's just nothing wrong. And there wasn't, but all she's complaining about is she's covering her ears and saying loud, loud. But she's still responding to me. I know she can still hear me, but she's just complaining that it was loud. And as I'm checking her over, I'm not seeing anything physically wrong with her. There's also nothing on her.
He rolled his eyes there.
I'm making sure that she was okay.
So like him rolling, okay, I'm gonna play that part again. Cause there are times he rolls his eyes, because I think he's annoyed that he's even been charged with this. He seems annoyed.
And as I'm checking her over, I'm not seeing anything physically wrong with her. There's also nothing on her. So I'm making sure that she was okay, and she was physically okay.
Once you make sure that Elowen is physically okay, what happens next?
So at this point, this is when I said this, to where this is when I realized what had happened, to where, like, consciously I'm realizing this wasn't just someone that I shot. This was Caitlin. This was someone that I cared about, who was important to me and my family and my kids. This wasn't just some random person. And I immediately felt horrible. And I didn't understand what was going on. Like, why was this happening? What just happened? Why was this happening? I didn't understand it.
I think he's waiting for his lawyer to ask him a question. I don't know.
So at this point, I'm just trying to figure out what am I supposed to do?
Call the police.
I didn't know what I was supposed to do at this point. I'm not thinking like, yeah, I'm not thinking, oh, I'm justified actually because of XYZ. I'm thinking, no, I just shot someone that is not just a random person. This was Caitlin. I didn't know. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out what to do. And this is again to when just sort of basic instinct is coming out to where I'm thinking, well, I need to make sure that my kids are okay. So I'm thinking, okay, Elowen is physically okay, but I need to make sure that she's mentally okay too. I need to, one, because again, I don't know who she was texting, if people were coming to the house. I didn't know what was going on. I wanted to get out of the area, out of the immediate area first. And I wanted to spend time with the girls to make sure that they were mentally okay. So at this point, this is where I'm literally running into the house, just grabbing necessities. I'm like, okay, I'm just grabbing clothes. I'm grabbing blanket. I'm grabbing a pillow. I'm like grabbing like food, water. I'm just grabbing necessities to just bring back to the car. This all probably took maybe 5 minutes total as I'm just running in the house and just grabbing things. I know, yeah, I grabbed my computer and my hard drive. I guess it was because, okay, my computer is my life outside of my kids. Like, this is where I do all my work. Like my hard drive, literally the only thing that's on my hard drive is all backups of my work. So I guess I'm just thinking like, oh, well, this is a necessity. I just have to grab it. So I just grab it. And as I put all this stuff in the car, then immediately take off after that probably took like 5 minutes.
Did you turn out the lights and deadbolt the door?
Yes.
I mean, I guess I don't consciously remember doing it, but I guess it makes sense because that's just what I would normally do. Like, hey, I'm leaving the house, I'm turning off the lights, I'm locking the door. I mean, deadbolting the door, I don't even think I had the key to the actual doorknob. I think the only key I had was for the deadbolt. So I guess it was just something natural that I would do as I'm leaving the house, is just turn off the lights and lock the door.
And so, have you also put Valen in the car at this point?
Yeah, yes, Valen's in the car as well, yes. If it's not obvious, she was the very first thing I went and got from the house, yes.
And what did you do next once you?
So this is why I wanted to talk about this one, because he just seems annoyed. And then he laughs at points that he's even having to defend himself, that he's having to explain this. But I'm sure his lawyer asked him to keep his responses short because he's just going on and on in ways that he doesn't really have to. And notice the state is saying nothing. Okay. Because so if he was doing something that was helping his case, but the lawyer wasn't drawing the information out of him, the state might have objected to narrative. But the state is just sitting back, letting him dig this hole deeper and deeper. Okay. And so it's going to go back and forth for a little bit. We are going to skip ahead to cross-examination. Okay. All right. So let's get to cross-examination by the state. Okay.
Mr. Duren, again, you're still on rules. Thank you.
I want to notice his eye contact. Yeah, I made myself bigger for that. He's just, it's, ugh. Okay, so I just want to mention there was body cam video. So they showed the body cam video. I'm not going to show it. There is body cam video of when the children were found. The children were not restrained, and like they weren't in car seats, which like for their age, in Virginia, I think kids are supposed to be in booster seats until I think 6 or so. Our 8-year-old still, even though he's tall, like it's still safest for him to be in a booster because it helps the seatbelt fit him correctly. But like the kids are not, he didn't grab their car seats. And okay. Oy. But I think they were just kind of in the back seat. And when he was arrested, they said he was kind of leaning back. He mentioned that there are kids in the car. He did let them know that he had a weapon, and he was detained without incident. But yeah, a lot of people, he really focused on the older child, and he said a lot about his computer. I do not know what he did for a living. I know he had a YouTube channel. I think I've please do not, like, watch any of the videos or anything. I think there were only, like, 36 subscribers. If I found the correct channel, there wasn't a ton of stuff going on that one, but yeah, and he looked very different. I think he was a little bit scruffier, but and not that that matters, but he's cleaned up for court. Um, yeah. Valen was sitting the wrong way. Okay, so she was in a car seat. Okay. Okay. But was sitting the wrong way in the car seat, strapped in. And Elowen was laying down in the back seat. And he's gonna say he didn't know that there was an Amber Alert. That's what he's gonna say. Because there was an Amber Alert. He's going to say he went dark because he immediately called his parents and told them what happened. His father testified. He was called by the state. His father is a retired police officer, I think, or police. His father's retired law enforcement. And I think his father, to me, it was clear the father was supportive of his son and didn't want to say anything that could hurt his son. And so, like, yeah, but to me, it made his testimony come across as a little less credible to me when I watched it. All right, let's get into cross-examination.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Mr. Duren, you testified on Friday that it was January 19th of 2024 when Caitlin first sent you her flight information as to how she was going to come to New Hampshire with Valen. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you hadn't quite left from Minnesota at that point. You were in fact still there until the 20th, the next day.
yes,
So it was on January 19th that you knew that Caitlin's ticket from Minnesota to Boston was for 2 people, correct?
well, it was a single ticket, but yes, with both, because Valen was only one at the time.
And you knew that it was a round-trip ticket for 2 passengers, correct?
Yes,
But your intention was, and the thought was, that Caitlin wouldn't bring Valen back to Minnesota, that you would keep her there with you, correct?
yes,
That's what we wanted.
And you wanted Caitlin and believed that Caitlin was going to go to Minnesota again after that.
for a few more months, yes,
She then was gonna move to New Hampshire and live about 2.5 hours away from you?
and if that was what she wanted, yes,
Were you gonna let her, you weren't gonna let her move into your house in Berlin, correct?
as I said earlier, I would have, if she wanted to have the conversation, I would have
I don't know about that.
talked about it.
But you've testified and you have heard your statement where you told the police that your plan, as you discussed with your mom, when you would have victory was for when you had the girls and Caitlin was gone, correct?
Because that was what was always the plan.
He doesn't realize how that makes his case look bad. That victory is him having the girls and Caitlin being gone. Like he's just going to answer that question and not clarify anything. Okay, that was a choice.
Now, You made it clear to police that you're a very calm person, correct?
Not like an eerie.
Yes.
You do your best under stress,
I think so, yes.
and that's what you told them, correct?
Yes.
Now, you've talked to us today about this Marine threat level that you function with in your daily basis, correct?
Yes.
But as being a Marine, you were taught how to deal with stress, correct?
Yes.
That's part of what that MIC-MAP training is, the Marine Combat Martial Arts Program.
Well, that's not about stress, but about drilling and training.
Well, it's a three-part process, right? It teaches you about intellectual stuff, mental training, as well as physical and disciplinary training, correct?
Sure, yes.
And so it teaches you as a Marine, because that's a high-stress job, right?
Yes.
And you need to be able to assess threats, but still make decisions, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, you told the police that you only yelled at Caitlin one time on January 29th, the day you killed her, correct?
Yes.
But today you've testified that you were yelling at her, you were screaming at her, "What's going on? Give Elowen back," correct?
No.
No, you
I
weren't
s-
screaming at all?
I said this was the one time that I did yell.
So you
The
yelled
one
once?
time, yes, the one time where I was yelling, yes.
And you yelled just once, one yell.
Okay, maybe it was 2 sentences.
I I don't think he gets how bad this is coming across. Like it this isn't going well for him. And I don't think he sees that yet.
Could it have been more than 2 sentences?
No.
You were pretty frustrated, weren't you?
I was having justifiable emotions with my child
Justifiable emotions.
being held hostage in front of me.
And those
But
emotions
yes.
were frustration, correct?
You could say that, yes.
Anger, correct?
No, I don't think so.
You weren't angry, you just said she was being held hostage. That didn't
She
make
was.
you angry?
I was frustrated, yes, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that I was angry.
But it caused you to yell just once, and that's one of what, 3 times in your entire relationship.
Yes.
Now, there was no time on January 29th of 2024 where Caitlin hit you, correct?
No.
She never struck you?
No.
She never struck Elowen?
No.
She never struck Valen?
No.
In the moments before you shot her, you described to police that she was holding Elowen in a bear hug, correct?
Yes.
Today you've described it as a one-arm hold. Fair to say?
No, the bear hug was in the 3rd attempt, the final attempt.
Okay, but before that, Caitlin was only holding Elowen with one arm.
Sure, yes.
Caitlin was 5 feet tall.
Yes.
She
Wow.
was 114 pounds.
About, yeah.
Okay, well, you heard the medical examiner say he weighed her naked body, and she was 114 pounds, correct?
Okay, yes.
Now, you are about 5'10", correct?
Yes.
On your license, it says you were 190 pounds, fair to say?
Yes.
You're bigger than she is,
Yes.
stronger than she is.
But that has nothing to do with when she's holding my child hostage and restraining her.
Mr. Duren, you're bigger than she is, correct?
Yes.
You're stronger than she is,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
You've had martial arts training, correct?
Yes.
You know how to fight with your hands.
Yes.
And yet, when Caitlin was holding Elowen with one arm, you couldn't get her away.
Without hurting Elowen, no.
Your testimony today is actually that you shot Caitlin because she hurt Elowen in a moment when you tried to pull her away, correct?
Yes.
She had no weapons?
Well, actually, I
Mr.
should
Duren, you've
clarify.
answered the question. You had no weapons? I'm
I
sorry,
had-
she had no weapons?
She did not have a weapon, no.
She did not have a knife.
She did not have a knife, no.
Where you were standing, you had 2 pocket knives behind you in the room, correct?
In the bedroom,
In
Doesn't
your
look like it.
bedroom?
yes, behind me,
The front door was behind you.
yes.
Where you were positioned in the living room, she would have to go through you to get to the back door, correct?
Yes, that's why I didn't want to leave the immediate area, why I had to keep constant visual on her and Elowen.
But you didn't have constant visual.
But So to me, when he describes that, because the prosecutor's trying to get at the fact he's blocking the door and he's saying, I had to keep constant visual on her and my oldest child. And it's like, you didn't know, you didn't have to do that. This is incredibly controlling. Like, and the fact that he thinks this is just normal parenting, normal love, or like that's a bit concerning, but okay.
On Valen, correct?
Sadly, no.
I'll go back.
But you didn't,
Visual on her and Elwin.
but you didn't have constant visual on Valen, correct?
Sadly, no.
Caitlin did not have a gun, correct?
No.
You had the gun.
Well,
right?
technically the gun was closer to her, but there was a gun in the room, yes.
Now, let's talk about that. Caitlin was at your house. She spent the night.
Yes,
At some point, however, even though you were nervous, because you've described that the whole time she was there, you wanted her to leave, right?
I wouldn't say I was nervous that night or the morning.
But you wanted her to leave.
Yes,
You were suspicious, right?
yes,
Because you hadn't expected her to come to the house.
no,
You testified that that made you nervous, correct?
yes, yes.
So you were nervous.
Okay, yes,
Now, you have a gun safe in that house, a gun lockbox, right?
I do, yes,
It's in the back bedroom, right when you walk in from the back door, correct?
yes.
You didn't put the gun in that lockbox, right?
No, the gun is always near me.
Except when it's in the lockbox?
I guess it would depend on the situation, but it would have been rarely in the safe.
When the gun was on the desk, you weren't sitting at the desk, correct?
I was previously,
You
but
didn't pick up the gun when you walked away from the desk?
no.
So the gun isn't always near you, fair to say?
I always have visual on it. This is something that is instilled in you from the Marine Corps. You always know where your weapon is. You always are aware of who's around it.
Was it instilled in you in the Marine Corps to leave your gun out on a desk if you're nervous about the other people who have access to it?
Again, I know who is around it at all times.
You've testified that you were nervous about Caitlin, correct?
Sure, yes,
Okay, and you testified today, you didn't tell the police, but you testified today, or I guess on Friday, that you had taught Caitlin how to use that gun, correct?
yes,
Okay. And today, you testified that you were concerned because she was in close proximity to the gun, right?
which is again why I wasn't leaving the room.
But you were concerned, and that's what you've testified today, that Caitlin was in close proximity to the gun, right?
Yes,
Part of that concern that you thought maybe she might go for the gun?
I can't say hypotheticals, but that was the point of me staying in the room and constant visual on her and Elwin.
Well, you can't say hypotheticals, but you sure testified that you didn't know someone was outside your door, correct?
Yes,
That's a hypothetical, right?
I suppose so, yes.
Can't say hypotheticals, but you sure testified that you weren't sure if Caitlin had texted somebody to come to the house, correct?
Yes,
You can't say hypotheticals, but you sure testified that you didn't know if Caitlin had brought other people with her from Minnesota, correct?
yes.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit more about your calmness under stress. You told a story on Friday, the third story, I believe, about what happened to you in Las Vegas, right? You were directed to talk about the third thing. And
Yes,
so let's talk about that third thing. In Las Vegas, one night when Caitlin was at work, correct?
yes, I believe she was babysitting someone, yes.
Okay, but that's work, right? She was making money doing that?
Yes, yes,
You were at home and you heard a person try to get into the front door, correct?
yes,
That person was a stranger?
yes,
You didn't know them?
no,
Had no reason to have feelings for that person?
no,
No love for them?
no.
You picked up your gun when you heard that person at the door, correct?
Yes, after bringing Elwin upstairs and made sure that she was safe upstairs and not to move.
Left her in a place in the house where you didn't have eyes on her, correct?
They would have had to got through me to get to her.
You picked up your gun,
Yes.
you made sure that it was loaded with a clip in it,
And it was loaded previously, but yes.
okay? You racked the slide to make it ready to fire.
It was, at that point, actually, it was already loaded.
So you already had it ready to fire.
Yes.
So when you told the police in your statement that you are a person who never keeps the gun with a bullet in the chamber, that wasn't quite true, correct?
Never, I guess I shouldn't have said an absolute like never, but a majority of the time it is in condition 3.
He rolls his eyes so much, and I wonder if the jury is going to pick up on any of that. So I have to be careful about what my eyes do and what my facial expressions do in session, or if I am called to testify, I would have to manage, because attorneys, see, I'm doing it now. Attorneys can ask infuriating questions, but they're trying to sometimes get a reaction on the stand, because he's trying to say he's so great under pressure. He's this awesome guy, and yet this is what you did during a heated discussion, a heated argument. And Northwest, same, but I think, and so that's where I like to talk about likability with the defendant. And I don't think he's coming across like a jerk to me. Like, I would not want to I don't even drink beer, but, like, if I did, I would not want to I wouldn't wanna hang out with him. Like, he comes across like, ugh, I don't no thanks. No thanks. If he was a client, we would, but he would never be a client. I can't be clients with people that I've covered on my YouTube. If somebody like him did present to me, I would check in to see, like, hey, does anybody ever like, after we have a therapeutic relationship built, I'd be like, do people ever think that you're kind of like a jerk? Like, I would check in, because he probably knows it. He probably knows. Like, people are like, yeah, people, they misread my sense of humor. Yeah, like, I really only get along with other narcissistic Marines. Like, I don't know. Like, do you think we could work on that? Like, hey, is that something you'd like to work on? Goes, oh, this is a problem. And I do not know what his upbringing was like. His parents are actually the ones that called and reported the crime. And he's going to say that when he called his mother to tell her what he had done, that he told her to call the police. I don't believe that. I don't believe. His father is former law enforcement. And so when he called the mother to say, I did this, and then he recorded a video of the kids, like, happy, and like, it's so weird. Because I think he just wanted to prove, like, the kids are okay. And but his parents called the police, and that's when they went to the apartment. They found Caitlin, and that's when this whole investigation started. And he went dark and that's what he's going to say. He said he's going to say he went dark after that call. All right, let's keep it going.
Not condition 1. So normally without a round in the chamber.
So when the person was trying to break in your front door and you picked up your gun, it was already ready to go, right?
Yes.
Was the safety on?
Yes.
Did you turn it off?
No.
So you approached the stranger at your front door with a loaded gun ready to fire, but the safety's still on, correct?
Yes, that is how you train. You don't take the safety off until immediately before you fire, and then you immediately put it back on.
And holding that gun, you told the stranger to leave.
Yes.
Holding that gun, you told the stranger that you were armed, correct?
Yes.
Holding that gun,
I think pretty immediately. So I think on his drive, because this is before he turned his phone off, because he turned his phone off so that he couldn't be tracked. So it was pretty immediate that, like, when he was in the car, I think driving, that's when he called his mom. And it was a 13-minute phone call. The state is going to bring that up if we get to that portion.
opened your front door to the stranger and said you should go, correct?
Yes.
holding that gun, you showed the stranger your weapon. And you said, look, I'm armed, correct?
Yes.
You told the stranger you could shoot, correct?
No, but
Pretty much
I'm
lied.
flashing it. Yes. Yes.
You had called the police that night.
Yes.
Your must
This is all to prove you handled this situation with a complete stranger completely different. You have the capacity to assess a dangerous situation or what you perceive to be a dangerous situation, call the police and not use force.
muscle memory didn't take over, right? You didn't just shoot the stranger,
Because the stranger wasn't holding my child,
but the stranger was trying to break into the house where your child was located.
but I was in between that person and the child. And they
But-
weren't, and they were never in the house.
And you didn't shoot that stranger in the head, did you?
No.
You waited for the police and the stranger just walked away.
Well, they continued banging on windows.
The answer
and
was yes.
Trying to get in through windows, and then eventually left as I stayed downstairs and monitored.
So this person not just knocks on your door and attempts to break in, but now they're breaking through windows, you don't see your child, and you don't shoot,
They
correct?
didn't actually break a window, but they were banging on windows, yes.
You testified that on February the 14th of 2024, you called the Berlin Police Department, right?
Yes.
And you called them because you just had a fight over the phone, so you say, with Caitlin, correct?
Yes.
And that was about custody, correct?
Yes.
And in that phone conversation, is it fair to say that Caitlin made some of the same statements you've testified she made on the 29th before you shot her?
Yes.
You say that she was demanding money, she wanted the kids on her taxes, she was never gonna let you see them again, and she was gonna bring them back to Minnesota, correct?
Yes.
So to call the Berlin Police Department, you had to look up that phone number, correct?
I did, yes.
You spoke with somebody for over 6 minutes at the police department, didn't you?
Okay, yes.
On February 29th, you had your cell phone with you, right?
I couldn't say where it was, but
You had it while Caitlin was at your apartment?
yes.
You had it the whole time that she was there?
Yes.
You had it the every 15 to 30 minutes that you walked in to ask her to leave and she ignored you?
Well, I wasn't seeing a threat at that point.
But you were nervous.
I was, yes.
You testified just now that that made you wonder what the plan was, what she was gonna do, whether something was afoot, correct?
But I don't think that would be appropriate to call the police over.
But then, after those, you didn't shoot her then either, correct?
No.
So after going into the room every 15 to 30 minutes, and let's be clear, this is from lunchtime, correct, until it gets dark.
Yes.
So let's say
That's weird. Like for somebody to be pacing like that is so weird. But that's what he says he did. Okay.
from noon till maybe 5 p.m.
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
just as an average, right? So 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 hours, right? At any time during those, either the 5 hours or at any time during the day prior to shooting Caitlin in the head, you never tried to force her to get out of your apartment, correct?
No, I didn't physically try to force her out of the home.
You
No.
knew that you could, right?
Because I'm stronger, I guess.
Well, you've in fact
Sure.
made her leave a home before, correct?
Your Honor, may I approach?
I'll fast forward. So I watched this with Paul. Paul had some great commentary during the sidebars. The bad lip reading or what he thought they could be talking about.
Mr. Duren, you've made Caitlin leave a house before, correct? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. I think he's trying to figure out where she's going. Like, because y'all know I'm not a body language expert. He just looks annoyed. When you're stressed, your mouth gets dry. Also, like, just for sitting up there for a while, it can get dry too. But fast forward.
Did you call the police and tell them that she was refusing to leave your home, correct?
Oh,
No,
At no time before you shot her in the head did you call the police and tell them that you were afraid that she was going to harm your children, correct?
that's correct.
At no time before you shot her in the head, at any point during that day, did you call the police and say that you were afraid she would take your children, correct?
I did prior to that, but not that day. No.
You mean the February 14th phone call, correct?
Yes.
You didn't call the police back, correct?
No.
You didn't call back the officer that you spoke with for 6 minutes?
No.
You had set it up so that they were aware, correct?
Yes.
But you never bothered to call them that day and say, hey, get this woman out of my house, correct?
correct.
Because at the point that
No
something,
cuts.
at the point that this was happening, this was a moment-to-moment situation. I couldn't take my eyes or my focus off of Elwyn or Kaylin.
Between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m., you asked Caitlin to leave approximately, what, 12 times?
Well, yes, but that didn't seem appropriate enough a reason to call the,
This part is not going to make any sense. Okay. So don't even try to make this part make sense. This part is just not gonna make sense. Lisa, you're hilarious. Oh, okay. We're gonna get to the closing. Oy, oy. We're gonna get to it. A little bit more with Cross, and then we will switch over to closing arguments from today.
police over.
She was staying in your house against your will, correct?
I was trying to figure out the plan.
You were not concerned enough that you needed to call the police to have her leave, correct?
At that point, no.
But even though you wanted her to leave, you did nothing to make it happen.
I was
Correct.
trying to figure out the plan.
Mr. Duren, after you shot the police and you've testified here today that you didn't understand.
So she did make a mistake, and he is not gonna let that go. Now, she did say that. She did say this, but he's not gonna let this go.
What had happened, correct?
Can you clarify? I
You
shot the
testi-
police?
After you shot Caitlin, you have testified today that you did not understand what had happened, correct?
Yes, I was trying to figure it out.
You were trained as a Marine, right?
Yes?
You know what happens when you fire a gun at somebody, correct?
Yes,
You know what the intention is when you point and fire a gun at somebody, correct?
yes,
And that intention is to kill.
yes.
You knew that you had done that you had killed Caitlin, correct?
I didn't consciously realize that it was Caitlin until, like I said, I was in the car with Elwyn.
So you knew that there was somebody dead on the couch in your
And once again, that focus on Elwyn is just weird. In my just thoughts, it's just weird.
living room, right?
My focus was Elwyn.
And you knew that it was Caitlin who had set you off and made you grab the gun.
I don't know if I would say set me off, but yes,
Well, you
yes,
described it as a tick, right?
yes,
Setting you off, it's a tick, right?
hurting my child in front of me, yes,
Okay. And your testimony today is that that is the reason why you fired.
yes,
After you shot her, you didn't call the police to report that you had just killed somebody inside of your own apartment.
no,
You didn't call the police and report that you had done that because somebody had hurt your child, correct?
Nope.
no,
You didn't do that to say to the police, hey, I thought they were gonna kidnap my child, correct?
correct,
You didn't call the police and say, hey, I thought that my child was being held hostage and I had no choice, correct?
I did not call the police and tell them those things, no.
You never called the police, did you?
His mother
I
did.
called my parents and told them to call the police.
You
I don't
agree
believe
that's
it.
not calling the police, correct?
Technically, no.
Not technically, sir. It is not calling the police to call your parents who live thousands of miles away. Fair to say?
Okay, yes.
Christina has a great question, and then we are going to jump over to closing arguments to make sure, because I have a stop at 11:55, so I have about another hour and 20 minutes or so. I have a full link to this down in the description. It does not get any better. And so the state did a phenomenal job. Christina asks, were there any psychologists who testified for or against his supposed PTSD? So they aren't claiming that his PTSD caused him to do it. So it's kind of included. Like they're just saying he's a veteran and he was a Marine. He has combat PTSD. So he sensed the threat and this was defense of another. So they are claiming defense of another. That is their defense. They're not saying he was mentally incapacitated, because that would be not guilty by reason of insanity. So that's when you would have to bring in all of that. So they aren't saying that his PTSD caused him to do it. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. He likely does have a diagnosis, especially if he has a psychiatric hospitalization. It's weird how his depression magically got better after the birth of Elowen. And but then the idea of Elowen being taken away from him, my personal thoughts from hearing this, it sounds like he got homicidal. That's wanting to unalive somebody else. He has a history of being suicidal. And so that's where I think that's how I see the case. I didn't assess him. These are just my thoughts as somebody on the internet. All right. Let's get into closing arguments. So this is from today. Thank you, Court TV. I have a link to this full thing down in the description. I think they have closed captions on. We are going to play this. So we're going to start. Let's see, we're going to start. I think I have it muted. Let me know if I need to adjust my volume at all.
Thank you very much.
We are going to take deep breaths because I believe the defense is going to start. Okay. And we're probably going to be upset. So the defense is going to start. Wow. Advice of the day: no caffeine ingestion at 10 p.m. Thank you, Christina, for being a member for 6 months. All right, let's hop into this. Let's speed it up a little bit because we can. 1.25. So it's on 1.25 speed.
The law says that Dustin Duren is not guilty.
I disagree.
The law says that Dustin was justified when he shot Caitlin Nafziger.
I disagree.
The law says a person has the right to use deadly force when they reasonably believe that someone is committing or about to commit a kidnapping.
It wasn't reasonable.
Caitlin had kidnapped Dustin's child before. She had a plan.
I'm pretty sure, like, what she did not. So, yes, she took the child without permission. He couldn't even report her as kidnapping because they don't have a custody agreement. It's not kidnapping. I'm going to interrupt her a lot, probably. Prepare yourselves. I'm just going to keep her and she's doing her job. Okay. So I want Dustin to have a phenomenal defense so that hopefully, my personal thoughts, when he's convicted, there's no appeals. Okay. So I want him to have a good defense and for the jury to see past the BS and to find him guilty. That's just what I personally would like.
To kidnap his children again. She told Dustin he would never see his children again, and she was holding Elowen hostage in front of him. Dustin reasonably believed that Caitlin was committing or about to commit a kidnapping.
I don't agree.
Dustin Duren is not guilty. This is a case of secret plans, broken promises, and a father's unyielding love.
That's not
It's
love.
about a Marine reacting to a threat toward his beloved daughter.
It's
A
weird.
horrific tragedy, but not a criminal offense. The law says that Dustin Duren was justified when he shot Caitlin Nafziger. Dustin Duren is not guilty. Caitlin Nafziger went to Dustin's apartment in Berlin in late February 2024 under false pretenses. She
Okay.
told him that she was there to drop off his daughter Valen, but she was actually there with a secret plan that she came up with together with her aunt Brenda, a secret plan to take both kids to Minnesota without Dustin knowing, a secret plan to kidnap the children. And it wasn't the first time that Caitlin Nafziger had kidnapped one of their children. When the family lived in Las Vegas, Caitlin walked out of the house with baby Valen in a stroller. She pretended she was going to the park. Hours later, she hadn't returned. Dustin went to the park to look for them, and they weren't there. Caitlin had taken the baby not to the park, but to the airport. She was flying to Minnesota with their baby, moving out of the state with Dustin's child, without telling him, without getting his agreement, without even letting him say goodbye. Caitlin had kidnapped Dustin's child before, and when she came to New Hampshire, she planned to do it again. Caitlin and Brenda had a secret plan to kidnap the kids, to unlawfully interfere with Dustin's custodial rights, to take both Elwyn and Valen to Minnesota without even telling Dustin. But that secret plan was interrupted. Caitlin had to change her plan once Dustin began to figure out that something wasn't right. And here's what happened. First, Brenda drops Caitlin off at the restaurant rather than sticking around to take Caitlin back to her place in Hampton. Then, Caitlin wants to go back to Dustin's apartment in Berlin, where she had told him before she didn't want to stay. The next day, Caitlin won't tell him when she is planning to leave. Caitlin is acting suspiciously. She's ignoring him, doing something on her phone, refusing to engage about what is happening with their children and what she is planning to do. And this is the exact same thing that she did last time she kidnapped one of their children. And so Dustin is getting more and more suspicious. After Caitlin ignores him all afternoon, Dustin decides that Caitlin, who's refusing to communicate with him, is no longer welcome in his apartment. He tells her she needs to leave. She ignores him again.
Call the
He
police.
tells Caitlin it's time to leave and he will drive her back to Brenda's place. And to get ready to go, he puts Valen in the car seat near the kitchen. And when Dustin tells Caitlin that she's no longer welcome at his place, Caitlin's secret plan to kidnap the children is interrupted. Caitlin realizes she is not going to be able to steal the kids away from Dustin without him knowing. And so Caitlin changes her plan. She reacts. She grabs
There is no evidence that there was any plan for Caitlin to take the children. So this is the defense's story. I don't know that she was going to try to take the kids. And even if she was, they needed to set up legal custody. This was a legal issue, not like to be done in the courts.
Elwyn to use her as leverage, to use her as a pawn to try to enact the plan. Dustin comes back into the living room and sees Caitlin sitting on the couch, holding Elwyn from behind. Elwyn is straddled on Caitlin's knee. Dustin tells Caitlin, "Come on, we're leaving," and tries to grab Elwyn to get Elwyn ready to go. But Caitlin refuses to let Elwyn go. She grabs Elwyn and she pulls her back. And Dustin lets go because he doesn't want to engage in a physical struggle with Caitlin over their child. So he again asks. He starts to beg Caitlin to let go of Elwyn. Caitlin refuses. She says no. And at this point, Dustin's internal radar is going off. Caitlin is refusing to release their child. She's physically restraining her. She's putting her at risk.
Call the police.
And Caitlin has been acting suspiciously. She's been acting the same way that she did the last time she kidnapped one of their children. Caitlin is beginning to become a threat. Dustin is a Marine. He's trained to respond to threats. And he's responding at this point in the way he has been trained. He's at
Problem.
Condition Orange. feels there is a danger to his child, and at condition orange, he's focused in solely on that threat and his need to protect his child. Dustin is begging and pleading with Caitlin to just let.
I don't know how any person would think pew-pewing somebody while they are holding a 3-year-old, like, unless it's like a true stranger kidnapper situation, and because he's trained in hostage negotiations, supposedly. Like, I think that came out on cross-examination, because first you try to talk it out, you try to work it out. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but we're gonna listen. The defense is doing what the defense does.
Ellen go. And Caitlin again refuses. Caitlin tells him that unless he pays her $2,000 a month, she is taking the children back to Minnesota and he will never see them again. Let's be clear, she is not asking for child support. She is not asking for money to help her take care of the children. She is asking for money so that he can have the children. She's asking him to pay her money so that he can keep the children. At this point, she's holding Dustin's child hostage, holding her for ransom, saying that she'll only release her if he gives her money. And she's also threatening to call the police and to lie to them, to tell them that Dustin took Elwyn to Berlin without permission, and that she's going to lie to the police unless he gives her money. And while she's threatening to take his children from him and make sure that he never sees them again, she's continuing to confine, to restrain their child. Dustin feels like this is a hostage situation. Elwyn isn't safe. He's panicking. He keeps begging and pleading, begging Caitlin to just let Elwyn go. She refuses. She continues her threats that Dustin will never see the children again, that she is taking them from him. And she continues to confine Elwyn in her arms. At this point, the tension is rising. Valen is crying from her car seat in the other room, and Elwyn is crying.
Because they are
both from the
yelling.
argument and from being physically restrained by Caitlin. The situation is overwhelming. Dustin is scared for Elwyn. He needs to make sure that she's safe. His fatherly instincts, his protective instincts, are telling him that something is seriously wrong. The woman who kidnapped his child before is telling him she's going to do it again. And this time, he can see her physically holding their child hostage. Dustin, trying again to protect his daughter, tries to take Elwyn for the second time. And Caitlin pulls her, yanks back again, and Dustin lets go. Caitlin continues her threats to take the children and ensure that Dustin never sees them again. Caitlin is escalating. She's getting more and more aggressive. She's kidnapped one of their children before. She's threatened to take them from him before, but this time is different. This time, she's holding his daughter hostage, holding her for ransom right in front of him. This time, she's confining his daughter, restraining his daughter, using physical force against his daughter. And Caitlin had been on the phone.
So I have it boosted as high as it'll go. This is live feed from Court TV. I'm only hearing it on one side. Like, I'm only hearing it. So if you have headphones on, so I truly have it boosted as high as it'll go on my end. And I've turned my volume down a little bit. And so Lisa asked a good question about if there was any history of confirmed DV. And to me, it sounds like there was some control in the relationship. And when we talk about coercive control, it's almost as though he saw Elwyn as his, and she had no right to take Elwyn. And it's like, but as a parent, you have to make that, like, you can't just make that decision in and of yourself. If y'all aren't going to be together, okay. But then often the courts are the ones that determine what is best. And so, yeah. And he's now possibly trying to DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender, because he's trying to say Caitlin did all these things. And as people have mentioned before, she can't defend herself. She can't tell her side. So yeah, we'll keep it going.
Dustin's thinking, is there someone outside, maybe Brenda, waiting?
And so
He's thinking, she's saying she's taking my kids from me. She must have a plan.
she did. I don't know.
And Dustin tries one more time to take Elwyn, to free her, to make sure she's safe. This time, he tries harder. He tries to grab one of Caitlin's wrists with one hand and wrap his arm behind Elwyn with another so that he can free Elwyn from Caitlin's restraint. But instead of letting go, Caitlin gets more aggressive, more physical. Caitlin braces her leg against the table. She yanks back even harder than she
To me, I hear him getting aggressive too, but okay.
has before. She pulls, she twists, she bear hugs Elwyn. And Elwyn lets out a scream, a cry of pain from being yanked back by Caitlin. Dustin and Elwyn lock eyes, and Dustin sees Elwyn's fear and her pain. And hearing Elwyn scream is horrific. It's a line that has been crossed. Elwyn is about to be kidnapped. Elwyn is in immediate danger. And so Dustin acts immediately. And he very, very quickly, with deliberate motion and without conscious thought, acts the way that he has been trained. The only thing in his mind is save Elwyn. His internal radar goes into condition red when a threat is so immediate, a danger so imminent that you need to take action. Like he had been trained, instinctually, automatically, he grabs his gun, chambers around, grabs the collar of Elwyn's shirt with one hand, and pulls her as far toward him as he can while Caitlin is still restraining him. And while Elwyn is still in Caitlin's arms, still being held hostage, he fires a single shot. And immediately after he shoots, Elwyn is released from Caitlin's arms, and she is freed. Elwyn wraps her arms around Dustin, and he runs out of the house and puts her in the car. He talks to Elwyn and makes sure that she is physically unharmed. But he's still in this heightened mode, this need to protect his kids. He grabs what he thinks they would need, he puts Valen in the car, and he drives. And once he's on his way, once he knows both kids are safe, once he's out of condition red, he feels horrible. What has happened is tragic. Caitlin is someone he cares about and who is important to him and his children.
It's hard to hear.
He knew that he had been acting to save Elwyn, but that doesn't mean he isn't devastated by what just happened. And he knows he needs to turn himself in, but he wants to spend some time with the girls first to make sure that they are unharmed, to make sure that they are okay, not just physically, but mentally.
He didn't want to get
He
caught.
calls his mom. He tells her he shot Caitlin. He tells her to call the police. And then he turns his phone off so he can have some time with the girls,
So he cannot get caught.
checking in on the girls along the way. The following morning, he turns around and heads back to New Hampshire to turn himself in. And he is hoping to have a meal with the girls before he does so. But the police locate him
Maybe.
first. He cooperates, he complies with their commands, he makes sure they know that there are children in the car and exactly where his gun is located.
He did.
And he does these things to make sure his children are safe.
He did that.
And then he speaks with the police, voluntarily, although he's under no obligation to do so. He's still in shock when he tells them what has happened. He feels horrible about what has happened, and he doesn't want to blame Caitlin. He doesn't know New Hampshire's law on justification, and he doesn't know the law of defense of others. All he knows is that he was acting to protect Elwyn. When the state played the video of his interview, the last thing we heard Dustin say was about Elwyn. He says, not that it even justifies anything, but it's like, she's just my everything.
In a weird way.
And Dustin's right that Elwyn is his everything, but he doesn't know the law. The law says that Dustin is justified. The law says that Dustin is not guilty. The judge will instruct you on the law. He will tell you, evidence has been presented that Dustin acted in defense of another with respect to each of the charges.
Well, this is what they have to determine.
He will tell you that you must find Dustin not guilty
Yeah.
unless the state proves beyond a reasonable doubt that he did not act in defense of another. And the state cannot meet its burden. Dustin did act in defense of Elwyn. He is not guilty. The judge will tell you that when looking at the evidence that Dustin acted in defense of Elwyn, you should consider all the circumstances surrounding the incident. You should consider how he acted under the circumstances as they were presented to him at the time. and not necessarily as they appear upon detached reflection. The judge will tell you that Dustin had the right to use deadly force to defend Elwyn if he reasonably believed that Caitlin was committing or about to commit a kidnapping. Dustin's belief that Caitlin was about to commit a kidnapping was reasonable. Dustin had the right to use deadly force. Dustin is not guilty. And consider all the evidence you've heard that Caitlin was about to commit a kidnapping. And I'm going to highlight just 4 of the many things that you've heard. First, Caitlin's own aunt told you that Caitlin had a plan to take the children to another state without telling Dustin. Second, Caitlin had kidnapped one of their children before. Caitlin had taken one of their children, pretended she was going to the park, and actually gone to the airport to take Valen out of state, to move her to Minnesota without even letting Dustin know. Third, Caitlin was holding Elwyn hostage, telling Dustin he was never going to see either of their children again. And fourth, Caitlin was willing to harm Elwyn rather than let her go. Caitlin was, in fact, attempting to commit a kidnapping. We heard it from her own family member. And therefore, Dustin's belief that she was about to commit a kidnapping is not only reasonable, it's correct.
Custody is not kidnapping. Like, that's like, I get what, but like, it's just, it's not the same. They needed a court order to make all of this clear, but okay.
During jury selection, we talked about the fact that parents have a responsibility, a duty to protect their children. And that's what Dustin was doing. He was protecting his child, ensuring she was not kidnapped. The facts are clear. Caitlin was about to commit a kidnapping. You heard it from Brenda, and you heard it from Dustin. The law is clear. Because Dustin reasonably believed that Caitlin was about to commit a kidnapping, Dustin had the right to use deadly force. Dustin is not guilty. The state gets to make its closing argument last, and Dustin won't have the opportunity to respond. So let's talk a little bit about what the state is likely going to say and about the evidence the state presented or didn't present during the trial. First, you should not automatically believe that what the state is telling you is correct. The state showed you that in its opening statement. The state's claims about what the evidence would be in its opening statement were wrong, and they were misleading. Here's one example of when they were wrong about the evidence. The state told you, even put up on its big fancy screen, that Dustin was asked, "Fair to say you know you were endangering Elwyn," and that he said yes. But the sergeant, the police officer, the state's own witness, told you that what actually happened was the exact opposite. Dustin said, "Could it be that I'm endangering Elwyn by what I did?" And I would very much say no. Dustin was asked, "Fair to say you know you weren't endangering Elwyn," and that's what he said yes to. What the state told you about the evidence was wrong. What the state told you about the evidence was misleading. It told you that Dustin said the shooting was very deliberate, but it didn't tell you that that wasn't all he said. He said it was very, very fast, very deliberate. And that was misleading. That left out half the sentence to create a misimpression. The state also got it wrong when they said that Dustin grabbed Elwyn, she was in his arms, he stepped back, and then he shot. That's what the state said happened in its opening statement, and that's not what happened. And the state knows
Well, he changed his story on the stand, but okay, I guess. Okay, I guess. I don't know. Okay.
that's not what happened. The state had proof in their evidence that what they are saying happened is not true. Their claim that he had Elwyn in his arms and stepped back is not true. How do we know that? We know that because the range of fire was close enough that Caitlin's hair got caught in the slide of the gun.
Objection.
Was that I don't think that evidence I don't think that evidence came in I don't think that did. Because there was no stippling. Whoa. Uh-oh. We're watching this together. I haven't seen this yet. I don't know that that's what the evidence said.
Members of the jury, I'm instructing you, I'm striking the last sentence from the closing argument and instructing you to disregard it, and I will return to my seat now. Okay, thank you.
This is State's Exhibit 24A. They didn't talk to you too much about State's Exhibit 24A. They talked to you about the gun, but not about the other half of the picture. The other half of the picture says hair removed from slide. So be able to take it back with you, and you can see it right now. The police tampered with the evidence. They took the hair from
Objection.
the slide.
See,
May counsel approach.
Yes.
police tampered with evidence? You can't say that. Okay, like the defense knows this. Wow. I'm not a lawyer, but this seems wow. Okay, I get why people were getting upset. To me, this is worse than trying to make the victim the person being harmed, like to misstate evidence.
Based upon the totality of the evidence of the jury, I'm striking the last sentence
Again,
of the defendant's closing argument based upon the totality of the evidence that has been submitted. Also, there was no evidence adduced during trial of any improper action in the collection of forensic data. Attorney Kettles, you may proceed.
it's like they're trying to like drop in some doubt, but the state has a strong case in my opinion. Wow.
24A shows that hair was removed from the slide. The state didn't present any evidence that it tested the hair. The state didn't present any evidence about whose hair it was. The state didn't have its witnesses talk to you about the hair that was removed from the slide of the gun. And the state didn't talk about the fact that hair had been removed from the slide of the gun during its opening argument. And we can't know whose hair that was because the state didn't present any evidence, because the state didn't test it. But we can think about whose hair it must have been. We can think about where Dustin said his arm was when he fired, and where Caitlin was in relation to that gun and the slide of that gun. We can think about the fact that Caitlin's hair wouldn't have gotten caught in the slide of the gun if he had grabbed Elwyn, taken a step back, and then shot. Caitlin was still holding, still restraining, still confining Elwyn when Dustin shot her. Dustin was justified. Dustin explained to you that Caitlin was still bear hugging, still restraining Elwyn when he fired the gun. He explained to you that he pulled onto the collar of Elwyn's shirt with one hand to pull her forward to try to get her, but that she wasn't released from Caitlin's arms. She wasn't safe until after he shot. The state may try to argue that that's not what he told the police, but you have the video. Watch it. They say that he stepped back. Nowhere in that interview does it say that he stepped back. Nowhere in that interview does he say that Caitlin had let go before Elwyn was shot. I apologize, that Caitlin had let go of Elwyn before he shot. I expect the state will make a big deal of the fact that the medical examiner told you that there was no evidence of close-range firing. But that just means that some of the markers that the medical examiner would look for weren't there. The medical examiner told you that he couldn't say exactly where the shot was fired. He said that it's possible, he said on cross-examination, that it's possible to fire from close range without those markers being there, especially when there is hair overlying the entry wound, like there was in this case. There wouldn't be gunshot residue on the skin if there was hair in the way, and there's been no evidence presented that the state tested Caitlin's hair for gunshot residue. You have better evidence than the medical examiner, who can't say anything with 100% certainty, who wasn't there, who doesn't know whether or not this was justified. You have the photos from the apartment and from the autopsy. I'm not going to put them up again, but Caitlin was sitting on the couch facing forward. She was shot in the side of the head. Dustin couldn't have had Elwyn in his arms, taken a step back, and then shot. If he had done that, she would have been shot in the forehead from the front. Instead, what happened, what the evidence shows, is that Dustin was grabbing Elwyn's collar with one arm and shooting with the other, while Caitlin was still confining and restraining Elwyn. It's the only thing that makes sense with all of the physical evidence, that which was presented to you and that which was not tested. It's the only thing that makes sense with the location of the gunshot entry wound and exit wound. It's the only thing that makes sense with the trajectory of the bullet down through the drawers. The state's got it wrong when it describes where Dustin was and where Elwyn was when the shot was fired. The evidence that the state presented about what Elwyn says happened also gets it wrong. It's also misleading. The only evidence the state presented about what Elwyn says happened comes from a doctor, not from a police officer or an investigator. Let's go over exactly what Dr. Robertson said. Dr. Robertson was leading Elwyn. She was asking her pointed questions, trying to figure out whether she had any medical issues, based on the only information the doctor had at the time, which was that Dustin shot Caitlin. Dr. Robertson did the best exam she could with that limited information. Dr. Robertson said that she asked Elwyn.
So they're going to try to explain away the pediatrician's statement that Elwyn said. So the oldest child, who was 3 at the time, that she said, "My ears hurt, Daddy hurt Mommy and hurt me." They're trying to explain that away.
If there was anything wrong with her, and at first Elwyn said no. And only after Dr. Robertson guided her, led her to the answer,
No,
did Elwyn eventually say that her ear hurt and pointed to her left ear.
it wasn't that the doctor guided her. No, because the doctor said, "Are you hurting? Does anything else hurt?" or something. Like, it's okay. I hope the jury remembers how the doctor testified, because that's not accurate.
Dr. Robertson had to ask her a very specific question to get that answer. She had to ask her how her ear got hurt. And Elwyn answered that question. She said, "Mom and Dad were fighting, and Dad hurt Mom and me, and there was a lot of blood."
Yeah.
And Elwyn's ear hurt because she had heard a gun that Dustin shot. That's not up for dispute. But think about what Dr. Robertson didn't know to ask. Dr. Robertson asked Elwyn if she was hurt anywhere else on her body, and Elwyn said yes. But Dr. Robertson didn't know what else had happened. She didn't know that Caitlin had grabbed Elwyn, yanked her, pulled her, twisted her, made her scream in pain. And so the doctor couldn't get the right information out of Elwyn. The doctor didn't know what questions to ask to help Elwyn explain why else her body hurt. Elwyn was just 4 years old, and the doctor, who didn't know everything that had happened, couldn't ask her the right questions to get the full story from her.
I don't believe that.
The state didn't have Elwyn testify. They didn't present testimony of any police officers or investigators who had spoken to Elwyn. They didn't give you the full picture of what Elwyn said. They gave you one small glimpse from a doctor who was there to treat Elwyn, not to interview or investigate. And the doctor didn't know what had happened and didn't know what to ask. You didn't hear the full story of what Elwyn said. The state also presented evidence in a misleading way when it cross-examined Dustin. It tried to suggest that Dustin
Sir, you got up on the stand and in a misleading way, he was cross-examined? What? Let's continue.
Dustin never told the police that Caitlin threatened to take the kids. But Dustin told the police over and over again that Caitlin threatened to take the kids.
Okay.
You have Dustin's statements to police in evidence.
I thought when the state was asking that, I thought they were saying why in that moment didn't he report that or something. I don't know.
And here's the rough timestamps for all the times, not all, but some of the times, when he tells the police that she threatened to take the kids away from him, both before the incident and during. 28 minutes and 13 seconds, he says, she just kept threatening, well, okay, I'm going to take the kids away. 28:47, he said, every month it was basically the same thing of her wanting more money with threats of taking the kids away. 31:11, he said, she was basically threatening to put me in prison and take the kids away. 32:39, she threatened to arrest me and take the kids away. He starts discussing the day of the incident. 59:18, she started getting more and more aggressive about how, no, I'm going to take the kids from you. An hour and 16 seconds. The one thing that does set me off is these continued threats of taking the kids away from me. An hour, 1 minute, 58 seconds. Her just again threatening to take the kids and saying she just wasn't going to leave and that she wasn't going to leave and that she was going to take Elwin and Valen back to Minnesota. By an hour and 32 minutes into this interview, he said it so many times that the police start talking about how she's threatening to take the kids away. Dustin told the police, and he told you, that she threatened to take the kids away over and over and over again because that's what happened. I've given a lot of timestamps, but I'd ask you to take a listen to the video around 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's when Sergeant McLaughlin asks, and I'm quoting, the training you're talking about is marksmanship training, not specifically hostage? Because that's my first thought, was you're trying to remove Elwin from a harmful situation. Do you have training in hostage-type scenarios? That's the investigating officer's first thought, that Dustin was trying to remove Elwin from a harmful situation and wondering if he had training in hostage-type scenarios. That was the police officer's first thought, because Dustin was trying to remove Elwin from a harmful situation, from a hostage-type scenario. Think about the evidence that the state didn't present to you. The state didn't call Brenda. The state didn't talk to you about or present evidence of testing of the hair stuck in the slide. The state didn't ask the medical examiner about how hair impacts gunshot residue. The state didn't have a police officer who spoke to Elwin testify. The state had Dustin's phone. They had his text messages with Caitlin, his text messages with Lori, his text messages with Rob, but they didn't show them to you. They didn't want you to hear what they said. Those text messages
Why didn't y'all show them?
prove that what Dustin told you is true.
Yeah, because did the defense show them? The defense could have showed them. You can't say that. The defense could have showed them if there were things in evidence that could have. What? You can't say those things. Oh my gosh. But to me, this would look bad. So this is just my thoughts. To me, it looks bad when a lawyer is trying to sneak information in like this, because she's probably going to lose. Like the judge is probably going to say to disregard what she just said. And the jury can't unhear it. Okay.
Members of the jury, based upon the state of the evidence, I am going to strike the last
Yeah.
sentence of the defendant's closing argument and instruct you to disregard it. Thank you.
I expect the state is
Because if those text messages exist, the defense could have showed those. What? Oh my
going to try to argue that Dustin didn't reasonably believe that Caitlin was committing or about to commit a kidnapping because she was the children's mother and because there was no court order on custody.
Yeah.
But that just doesn't make sense. Think about it. Imagine if Caitlin's secret plan had gone into effect. Dustin would have woken up in the morning to both of his children gone,
He could have.
stolen, kidnapped, taken away to another state. We are talking about unlawfully taking children away from their father to another state permanently without him knowing. We are talking about coming up with a secret plan. We are talking about deception. We are talking about Caitlin planning to commit a crime. Dustin reasonably believed that Caitlin was about to commit a kidnapping. And the fact that she's the children's mother doesn't change that.
Whoa. Yes. Whoa.
The states also got it wrong. They're missing the point when they spent hours and days focusing on cell site location data and testimony from someone who saw Dustin's car and presenting a whole lot of evidence of things that aren't in dispute that Dustin told you happened. They're focusing on what happened after the shot was fired. But what matters in this case is what was happening immediately before and while the shot was fired. This whole case is about Dustin's defense of Elwyn, that Dustin was justified under the law.
But he wasn't, in my opinion.
Dustin wanted to spend more time with his girls. That's not a crime. He's not charged with anything related to that. It's only human nature.
No,
It's a father wanting to make sure his kids are okay.
don't do that. No, that's not the right way to do that.
He wasn't denying what had happened. He called his mom and told her. He knew his dad would call the police. He made sure they knew the girls were okay, and he told them that after he took some time with the girls, he was going to turn himself in. He didn't deny what had happened when he waived his right to remain silent and spoke voluntarily with the police. And he didn't deny what had happened when he took the stand here yesterday and spoke to you. Nothing that happened after the fact changes what happened in that apartment. It doesn't change that Dustin reasonably believed that Caitlin was about to commit a kidnapping, that Caitlin had a kidnapping plan, that Dustin was justified under the law. The state is wrong about whether Dustin's use of deadly force was justified. Think about Dustin's perspective. Think about what was going through Dustin's mind at the time. Dustin didn't think there was any help available. Dustin had spent months trying to figure out how to deal with Caitlin. He called his parents. He called her parents. He called a lawyer in Minnesota and one in Vegas. He called the Berlin Police Department, and they told him they couldn't help. Think about that time a year or two ago when he called the police in Vegas, and they didn't show up until after the threat was gone. Think about the fact that Caitlin had kidnapped his child before, and she had a plan to do it again. The judge will instruct you that you should consider how Dustin acted under the circumstances as they were presented to him at the time, and not necessarily as they appeared upon detached reflection. Consider how he felt at the time, in that moment that Elwyn is screaming in pain. Consider his perspective as a Marine.
I've had as much as I can take with her. Okay, I can't. We're gonna get to the state's closing. Okay, link to the rest of it because I can't.
Visual contact, Attorney Duren, ready for proceeding?
Thanks, Ron. Just checking, Ryan, you're all set?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was not an accident. This was not defense of others. This wasn't done to prevent a kidnapping.
Yeah.
It was murder.
Yeah.
And he knows it.
Yeah.
He knows. And that's why he's changed his story over time. He's taken time to craft what he's wanted to say. It's why he has changed what he told the police after he was caught to what he testified to on his stand. It's why he's tried to blame Caitlin Nafziger for her death. The real victim here, the victim that you're here to decide this case about, is the unarmed woman who the defendant shot in the head, who was sitting on the couch
Holding her
with
daughter.
the child.
Yes.
Now, yesterday, when he testified towards the middle of his cross-examination, he told you, in his own words, live from the witness stand, why he shot and killed Caitlin. And he told you that in that moment, right before he got his gun, right before he pulled the trigger, that she hurt his daughter. His daughter.
Exactly.
If you
Not
listen
our.
to defense counsel's opening, I lost track of the number of times that they described this child as his daughter. Caitlin Nafziger, according to the defendant, hurt his child. She hurt her by holding her tight, hurt her by pulling.
Okay. So I am loving this, okay, because he's very possessive of Elowen. The possessive nature, and that's where I keep going back to him saying this is the child that saved him from his depression and from wanting to not live anymore. Like, this was the child that saved him. And when Caitlin took the youngest child, he, like, called to check on her, but he didn't call the police. He didn't do any of those things. But when she was gonna take Elowen, that's when he lost it, in my opinion, my thoughts, based on what I've heard. And so I am loving that the state picked this up and they are pointing that out, because you all said this in the comments. You all said his daughter. No, 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 that was their daughter. She had 2 parents, and he, in my opinion, inappropriately ruined this child's relationship with her mother. And I hope if Elowen ever sees this video, hopefully long, like, be like 15, 16, be a full grown adult, sees coverage of her father's case, this was not her fault. This was not her fault. This defense almost makes it sound like if they weren't arguing over Elowen, that the mother would still be here. No, he made a decision that was wrong, and this was 100%, in my opinion, on Dustin. And no, so, like, you don't get to put this on a child, and the mother, take it to court. Bad custody agreement. Like, that's what I hear in all this. Whew, okay, yes. Okay, so I'm gonna rewind just a little bit. Let's get back to it.
Caitlin Nafziger, according to the defendant, hurt his child. She hurt her by holding her tight, hurt her by pulling her close, hurt her by pulling the child away when the defendant tried to grab her. Turning it on helps. Let's be clear. Caitlin was holding their child, her child, as much as his. A child she carried for 9 months, a child she gave birth to, a child that she could hold and bear hug and be with just as much as he could.
Yes.
They had equal rights to these children, rights they had been arguing about since August of 2023. On the day that the defendant killed Caitlin, he was angry. He was yelling. He didn't want to admit that during his testimony, right? I maybe yelled 1 to 2 sentences.
That's what he said.
The defendant needs to be in control. That is clear from his testimony. It is clear from his statement to the police. He is the person who operates best under stress. He needs to be the leader. He wants to have a plan, and you know what? Once a plan is made, there are no changes. Plans never change. But on that day, on February the 29th of 2024, the defendant was not in control of Caitlin.
Yes.
You know, defense counsel stood in front of you and said, think about how he felt, that he might have to lose his children, that he couldn't hug them when he was taken into custody. He was asking Caitlin to drop her child, the youngest one off, their child, with him, to then see her daughter, their daughter, who she hadn't seen in a month and a half, sleep over and leave. Think about that day and what the defendant's behavior must have been. How his frustration over the situation, over the change in plan, turned to anger over the course of a day. It must have. It doesn't make sense that it wouldn't have. He didn't want Caitlin there in his apartment. He wasn't happy that she had spent the night. It wasn't part of his plan. He wanted her to leave. He testified and told the police that during that day on February the 29th, every 15 minutes or so, I think he said 15 to 30 on the stand, but he said 15 during his statement to police. Every 15 minutes for several hours, up to 5, he agreed with me yesterday, probably between noon and 5 p.m. He went to the room where Caitlin was playing with their daughters, and he asked her when she was leaving. He hovered in the doorway. Her being there wasn't part of his plan. He wanted the girls with him, and he wanted Caitlin gone. He told the police that. He told the police that he'd even discussed it with his mother. For at least 5 hours, every 15 to 30 minutes, he went to that doorway and he said, "When are you leaving?" He asked how she was leaving, when is her ride coming? And she was ignoring him. She wasn't ready to leave her children, their children behind. The defendant was frustrated, but he became angry. He was angry because she wasn't doing what he wanted, wasn't following his plan. He was angry because she was ignoring his questions, because she didn't want to leave. He was angry because they were having the same dispute they'd been having since August of 2023. And Caitlin, we know, apparently, didn't want to hand their 4-year-old daughter over to the defendant while he was yelling and angry, while he was pulling at the child and trying to yank her from Caitlin's arms. Caitlin knew how angry he was, and she knew that he was dangerous. She didn't know how much of a danger in that moment, but he'd show her. You know that Elowen told doctors at the hospital what happened. You know that she asked them to look at her ears because they hurt from the loud noise of the gunshot. Defense counsel wants you to believe that Dr. Robertson, somehow not knowing what happened, led Elowen to make the statement that she made. This simply doesn't make sense. You heard testimony from Dr. Robertson where she explained to you how she approaches a child. "Hi, I'm Dr. Natalie. Can you tell me what hurts?" That's not leading. That's not trying to get an answer from a child. It's trying to find out where they hurt and where to examine. And when Elowen was asked what hurt and where to examine, she said that mommy and daddy were fighting. She said that daddy hurt her and mommy, that mommy had lots of blood. Elowen didn't have any bumps or bruises from being held tight by her mother. She didn't say that mommy hurt her. She said daddy did. The defendant hurt them both, and he hurt them in the worst way possible. On February the 29th of 2024, Dustin Duren murdered Caitlin Nassiger. He killed her as she sat on a couch in his living room. Remember the testimony. And ladies and gentlemen, you are the deciders of the facts, right? If defense counsel stands in front of you and they tell you something and you disagree with it, that's what you should do as jurors. You're the judges of the facts. If I stand in front of you and I say something that you don't agree was the evidence that you heard, that's what you should do. You should discard what I tell you and pay attention to the facts that you heard in testimony.
Yep.
But the facts that you heard was testimony from Dr. Weinberg,
Yeah.
right? And he talked to you about close contact firing. And even under cross-examination, his testimony was that the defendant had to be 3 feet away or more from Caitlin. And not just the defendant, right? But the tip of the gun. The tip of this gun had to be 3 feet or more away from Caitlin's body, away from her head when it was fired. And so we know that the defendant stood at a distance when he shot her in the side of her head. When Dustin Duren fired a single bullet from this Beretta 9mm handgun, Caitlin Nassiger was wrapped up on the sofa in their daughter's pink unicorn blanket. Her foot was on the coffee table. She had no shoes on and there were none close by. She wasn't threatening anyone. She had no gun, no knife, no weapon of any kind, nothing. She wasn't even looking at the defendant. You know, defense counsel stood in front of you and said, well, if it happened the way the state described, well then Caitlin would have been shot in the head. Well, not if she wasn't a threat, not if she wasn't watching him, not if they weren't engaged in any kind of dispute or argument like the defendant has said. We know from the evidence that she was shot here in her temple. That's what the doctor can tell you. In terms of positioning, that's based on how they were interacting at the time, and Caitlin wasn't looking at Dustin Duren. The defendant's bullet entered the left side of her head at her temple. It traveled straight through her brain. When the bullet exited on the right side of her head, it took pieces of her skull with it. The bullet continued in a straight line, cutting into the built-in bookcase behind her, ricocheting through the drawers. You know, Caitlin was likely dead before Elowen even saw the blood, before Elowen began screaming about the noise of the gunshot hurting her ears. The defendant didn't check to see if Caitlin was alive, to see if she could be saved. Instead, he ran. He loaded his car with changes of clothes. More than you needed for one night, more than you need for two. He put his desktop computer tower in the trunk. He turned
I didn't realize it was a desktop. Okay. So I get his desk, like, I thought it was like a lap. I heard him grab but he put his whole heart. That's strange. That's strange. Okay.
out the lights. He turned the key in the deadbolt and locked the door. He drove south. He went dark. You know, defense counsel made it a point that you didn't need to know about his phone searches or his phone records. You know what they told you, those records? They told you when he left his house, which gives you an idea of when he killed Caitlin. Those records that you have in evidence show you that around 6 o'clock, between 5:30 p.m. and 6 p.m., on the 29th of February, the defendant began to leave his home. Caitlin was dead, and he was on the run. A person who's justified, who acted lawfully, who acted to defend someone, they do not run. They stay in place. They do the right thing. They ended the threat. They call the police and they tell them what has just happened. It's the first thing that they say. They yell it at the top of their lungs. They scream that they had no other choice. But the defendant didn't do that, and he didn't do that because he had choices. There were options that didn't involve putting a bullet through an unarmed woman's head. He knew then that what he had done was not justified. It wasn't in defense of someone else, and it wasn't to stop a kidnapping. It was a murder, and he acted like a murderer. You know, a murderer packs their clothes and drives through the night with 2 little girls after he has killed their mom and left that mom dead in his living room. A murderer turns off his phone so the police can't find him. A murderer needs 16 hours to tell the police that something happened. And that's how long Dustin Duren had. From 6 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. when he left that house until he was taken into custody at 10:30 the next morning, he had 16 hours. But you know what's even more is a murderer needs 3 hours of background testimony at a trial before he can tell his new version of what happened.
Oh, that was, yeah. I get why the defense isn't happy with that one. Yeah. It is what it is. Let's fast forward. She didn't object. She said, "Can we approach?" And so the judge is sitting, because Starfish asked this. The judge is sitting so that he can see the screen for record purposes, just to make sure that he can see what's being displayed on the screen. So he's going to a spot, and they agreed on this. The prosecution and defense both agreed that he would sit in that spot during closing arguments. So. Oh, the judge didn't say
A
anything.
murderer needs 1.5 years to explain that his actions were an act of defense of others.
Mm.
You know, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant thinks in this case that he can fool you, that he can put this claim of defense of others in front of you, and that you will jump on it and detract from his actual actions and his intent. When you were chosen as jurors in this case, each of you individually, you brought your life experience with you. You brought your ability to make assessments and to make judgments, and you brought your common sense. You know, we keep a lot of things that you're not allowed to bring with you into the courthouse or bring with you into the jury deliberation room, but your common sense isn't one of those things. Your common sense and your knowledge about people, it stays with you when you come in the courthouse. It stays with you here in this courtroom, and it will sit with you as you go into that back room to deliberate. Your common sense and your experiences is why you were selected, and it gives you a framework and a basis to evaluate what happened on February the 29th of 2024. This is a framework that you can use to evaluate the witnesses, the testimony, and the evidence. Your common sense, plus that evidence, and plus the court's instructions, are the tools that you have. They're the only ones we give you, but they're the tools that you have to fairly and impartially weigh the evidence in order to determine whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt in this case that the defendant killed Caitlin Nafziger, and that when he did that, he was not acting in lawful defense of others to prevent a kidnapping when he shot her in the head. You, as I've explained, are also the judges of fact, and that is why you use your common sense to evaluate that testimony. You give the testimony of each witness what you believe it deserves, not what the state tells you and not what the defense tells you. In terms of the first part of your job, determining whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant killed Caitlin Nafziger, at the beginning of this case, we stood in front of you, my colleague, and told you that this is not and would not be a complicated finding for you. This isn't a whodunit, that by the conclusion of the evidence here, you would know beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is the person who shot and killed Caitlin Nafziger. Throughout the past week, you have learned that he confessed to his parents, he confessed to the police, his gun is the murder weapon, that he knows that when you point a gun at a person, you intend on killing, that he knows exactly where the bullet went, and that he has testified now in this case that he is the one who fired the shot. You know beyond a reasonable doubt that he killed Caitlin Nafziger. The defendant is facing several charges related to this case. Those charges include second-degree murder, reckless conduct with a deadly weapon, and endangering the welfare of a child.
Yeah.
The judge has explained some of the law to you, and shortly he's going to explain to you what it means to commit second-degree murder. The defendant, to be clear, is charged with two variations of second-degree murder. He's charged with knowing second-degree murder and reckless second-degree murder. The difference is in what he was thinking at the time that it happened. The court will talk to you about those charges of reckless conduct and endangering the welfare of a child, and those charges, so that you understand, are related specifically to the defendant's actions in which he placed 4-year-old Elowen in danger or violated a duty of care that he had to her. The facts of this case as presented to you over the past week and a half, have demonstrated that each of the requirements that you need to find the defendant guilty of these crimes beyond a reasonable doubt have been met. Let's demonstrate what I'm asking, or what the state, what everyone's asking you to do here, and want to look at the factors of second-degree murder. Up on the screen you have in front of you part of what the judge will instruct you on. The judge is the judge of the law, just like you are the judges of the fact. So his instructions will hold, okay? Now you have to decide whether the defendant caused Caitlin Nafziger's death. Again, this has been proven. The defendant admits that he was the person who pulled the trigger, that he shot Caitlin in the head, he caused her death. For knowing second-degree murder, you also have to consider whether the defendant acted with a knowing intent to cause her death. That means that when he fired the gun, he was aware that such conduct would cause Caitlin's death. You should consider all of the evidence that you've heard throughout this case when you decide whether the defendant knew that he would cause Caitlin's death by shooting her that day. You've heard about the defendant's ability with a gun, his military training. He testified that he raised the gun, and he admitted that the purpose of pointing a gun at someone is to kill. There is no other purpose. He knew that this would be the result when he pointed his gun at Caitlin and when he pulled the trigger. He knew exactly where the shot would go and the damage that it would cause. For each of the charges that we're talking about, you must also consider the defendant's claim that he was acting in defense of others. Specifically, the judge will instruct you that in this case, acting in defense of others means that the defendant had to not just reasonably believe. Now, defense talked to you in their closing about reasonable. It was a reasonable belief, a reasonable belief. But you'll note that on the screen, and as the judge will advise you later, that there's actually another portion of that. The defendant's belief has to be an actual belief and a reasonable belief. We expect and anticipate that, the defendant testified from the witness stand that all he had about this kidnapping plan or kidnapping idea were his suspicions. Suspicions are not an actual belief, they're just suspicions. The defendant didn't have an actual belief here, and he didn't have a reasonable belief here. And if he didn't have those two things, if his belief wasn't actual, if his belief wasn't reasonable, then he was not lawfully acting in self-defense, and his murder of Caitlin is not justified. There was a lot of discussion about where Elowen, where the 4-year-old is at the time that the defendant fired. And that's one of the things that you can consider, both in the charges of reckless conduct and with respect to the defendant's claims. At the time that the defendant had fired, if we look specifically at his claim that Caitlin was kidnapping, right? At the time that the defendant had fired, he had grabbed Elowen with his left hand, and he shot Caitlin with his right. With that action, the defendant ended any argument he might have made that he had shot Caitlin to prevent a kidnapping. It was over, it was done, and he had the child. But it's the state's position that there was never any kidnapping Caitlin was never about to commit a kidnapping. She was not about to do anything. She had made her position clear to him. She was refusing to leave, and she was seated on the couch holding their daughter. In the defense's opening statement, they told you that the defendant pulled Elwyn to safety before he fired. He told the police in his statement that he had grabbed her, pulled her back, and then shot. But yesterday in his testimony, he stated that he had just pulled her forward by her shirt and held her in place. He implies that she was still on Caitlin's lap when he fires the gun. But the defendant's testimony doesn't fit with the evidence. Dr. Weinberg testified that he found no evidence that the shot occurred within close range. He testified even on cross-examination that his opinion was that it had to be 3 feet or more away. He found no evidence of stippling. Now, this isn't gunshot residue, it's stippling. Little burns of gunshot powder embedded into Caitlin's skin or face. She didn't have any. There was no stippling on Caitlin's wound. There was no stippling on her face, her neck, or anywhere on her. Dr. Weinberg found no evidence of soot deposits on her face, and he testified to you that based on his examination of her body, the muzzle of the gun had to be at least 3 feet or more, not closer, 3 feet or further back when it was fired. And if the shot came from 3 feet or more from Caitlin's body, there is no possibility that Elwyn is on Caitlin's lap when the defendant fires. Elwyn was in his arms. Even if the defendant had fired the gun in the way that he demonstrated or tried to demonstrate from the witness stand yesterday, he would have been closer to Caitlin than 3 feet. The gun would have been closer still. Just as he told the police, the defendant grabbed Elwyn and pulled her back. The defendant then had to step back to shoot Caitlin Nafziger from the distance that her body shows the shooting happened from.
Wow.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about defense counsel's desperate efforts with respect to State's Exhibit 24A to talk about a hair on the slide.
Desperate.
No one knows whose hair this is. No one. Defense counsel does not have to put on a case. They do not have to bring up evidence. But if this hair was the linchpin that solved it, they had every right and could have. And they chose to put on a case.
Objection, burden shifting.
But it's true. Is it not true? She said it first. Wait. But so you can't get mad. You can't blame the state for y'all didn't test it and now be like, because the defense could have tested it if they thought it would exonerate him. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Defense, you started this.
Members of the jury, I'm going to strike the last sentence from the
Oh.
argument.
That's fine.
Two other comments. The defendant had no burden to test any evidence in this case. In fact, the defendant has no burden to produce any evidence in this matter. So with those instructions, I'll allow the state to proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, defense counsel kept showing you this photograph, the word hair, because there was a hair in the slide. And they want you to somehow put together and believe that that is Caitlin's hair, because that would somehow show you and prove by their theory that the defendant was closer than 3 feet. That you should use. So, Lisa, I believe the state believes. So, if Elwyn was right there when her mother, you would think she would have some. You would think she would have some blood or something on her. Did you know? Like you would think there would be something on her. So if she was holding the child, you would think. So what the state believes happened is that he likely grabbed Elwyn from her, stepped back, and then so that he was holding Elwyn. Okay. So I believe the state is saying that there's no way that they believe that he was holding Elwyn. That's what I'm hearing. Y'all correct me in the chat if y'all are hearing something different. But I believe the state believes that he was, but you can't claim defense of another if you are holding the baby. You have neutralized the threat. There's no reason to do anything else because you have the child. So I think that's why he's trying to say that she was holding the child when he did it and that his action saved her. Like that's what I think. But what makes more sense is that he grabbed, because I would think he's strong enough to do that. So yeah. So the state is saying that he was holding the baby. And that would also make sense why
The 3-4-year-old said it hurt her ear, that she was right beside him when he did the thing, because there was no blood, there was nothing on any of the children's anything he took with him or anything that was left at the house. There weren't any of, like, because he didn't say he had to change her because she had something on her, which, if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not
The
true.
fact that there's a hair on the gun that was next to the defendant, next to his child, in a pocket inside of a door in a car, and that you should somehow use this missing hair that hasn't been tested to decide that that means he was closer, that you should use his hair to disregard the testimony, the evidence, and the expert opinion of Dr. Weinberg. That doesn't do this. There's no inference as to whose hair. I think we all understand, especially possibly the women on the jury, that hair falls out. It's everywhere. Hair on a gun isn't an inference that you can make. It doesn't matter whose hair it was. None of it would show that Dr. Weinberg's testimony is called into question. Dr. Weinberg, who testifies that this gun, the muzzle of it, the very tip, was at least 3 feet away from Caitlin when it was fired. 3 feet from here to Caitlin. You can make reasonable inferences from evidence. You cannot make jumps or wild conclusions. You have State's Exhibit 26B in evidence. That's the defendant's statement. This is an image from that, just showing you him in that room where he was interviewed, in that room with police officers on March the 1st of 2024. He didn't claim during this interview anywhere, at any time, that he acted to defend somebody, that he acted to protect Elwyn from being kidnapped. The defendant didn't shout it at the top of his lungs. He never once said he acted in defense of anyone. Unlike in his prepared testimony Friday of last week and yesterday, the defendant didn't tell the police that Caitlin was kidnapping anyone or about to kidnap anyone. He also didn't tell the police about his suspicions or make hypothetical statements that someone might be outside of his apartment. He didn't tell the police that she was demanding that he pay her money in that moment. He talked a lot about times she'd asked for money in August of 2023, in September, October, leading up to this incident, but he never said those demands happened before he shot her. He didn't tell the police that she was demanding that he sell his car and give her money. He didn't tell the police that before he shot her in those moments, that he'd never see the kids again. These are all statements that he added over a year and a half later in support of his defense to excuse his murder of Caitlin. You remember when he was specifically asked in that statement if Caitlin was threatening anyone or causing any harm, he said no. He never once said he had to act to defend anyone. He never once mentioned a kidnapping. Not until yesterday in this courtroom did he make that statement. And even then, if you remember his testimony, he didn't say that he acted to shoot because his daughter was being kidnapped. He stated that he had shot and killed Caitlin because in that moment,
She cried.
she was hurting Elwyn.
She cried.
The defense has argued to you that Brenda Plumunden and Caitlin Nafziger formed some kind of secret plan to take the children. Their plan involved code words and planned 911 calls. And it never happened because Caitlin never called.
I forgot to mention that part. So Brenda, Caitlin's aunt, she's the one that brought her to the area so that Caitlin could see the kids. They had a code word that if Caitlin texted or called and said the code word, Brenda was going to call 911. To me, that lets me know she knows she's going into a volatile situation. I don't have a code word with anyone if I'm like with my husband, like, so there's no code word. I'm in a safe relationship, but there was a code word. And we have to remember one of the most dangerous times for individuals is when they are deciding to leave or there's a custody issue that can become, in some cases, that can become dangerous. So Oh, wow.
You know, for a plan to be secret, the people involved in it don't tend to broadcast what they're about to do, don't tend to stand in front of the person they're about to steal a child from and say, I'm going to call the police, I'm going to take the kids. You know, about that plan, what defense has termed as a secret plan to go along with the broken promises because Caitlin wasn't following the defendant's plans. The word plan comes up a lot, and I apologize because it's hard to keep them all straight sometimes. But Caitlin never called Brenda. She never texted her. She never asked for help. She never sent a code word, and Brenda never called 911.
Yeah.
More important to your consideration, defense counsel advised you're not to Monday morning quarterback the defendant's choices, right? You're only to consider what he knew in that moment. And so if he didn't know that Brenda and Caitlin had talked about this code word and 911 call plan, then he didn't consider it in the moments before he shot. What you do know is that the defendant didn't know about it and that it never actually happened. And because of those things, because he didn't know, you cannot use it to make the defendant's now stated belief that the defendant was going to kidnap the children become an actual belief or a reasonable belief. You know from his testimony that he only had suspicions. He didn't act on an actual belief, and his belief and his actions were not reasonable. On March the 1st of 2024, 16 hours after he had murdered Caitlin, the defendant drove from Vermont into Keene. He told you that he was on his way to turn himself into police, to turn himself in for shooting and killing Caitlin. He drove past multiple police stations in multiple states. He drove past the New Hampshire State Police Barracks at Troop C. He wanted to be arrested on his own terms. He knew that he would be taken into custody. He knew there would be an investigation, and he was ready for that. That's why he came back. He knew that speaking to the police was his opportunity to provide a statement about what had happened, his statement, and he wanted that opportunity. He wanted to speak with police and tell them why he shouldn't be in trouble for what he had done.
Yep.
But he didn't turn himself in. He got taken into custody at gunpoint in front of those two little girls whose mom he had killed. He had 16 hours to think about and prepare for this moment. He had 16 hours to determine what to say, what exactly to say and how to say it. He'd given himself the time and the space to put any spin that he wanted on the events that occurred in his living room. He'd had time to consider what it was he was going to tell police, how he would portray himself, how he would portray Caitlin. Besides his 4-year-old daughter, there was no one to contradict him. And so he waived his Miranda rights. He spoke with investigators for over 2 hours. They let him talk about anything he wanted to address and just asked him questions to fill in the blanks. This was the defendant's opportunity to tell them why he had killed Caitlin. He said she refused to leave. He said she was bear hugging their daughter, that she wouldn't let go, that he tried to pull the child away. If you listen in the tape, there's about 40 minutes where he talks about their background and his disputes with her and their custody issues. It's not until almost an hour in that he actually starts talking about the moment that Caitlin was in his apartment and leading up to his killing of her. In those moments, at around, I believe it's 1 hour and 4 minutes, the defendant says he was trying to grab Elowen and be like, hey, let go of Elowen, and she just wouldn't do it. And that was kind of the tick. And then he says, I think the moment was definitely very deliberate and fast. It was like the line had been crossed. That her not letting go, her continuing to hold Elowen, was the only thing, the tick, the moment in his mind when he decided to kill, the moment when he decided to walk for his gun. And you know that he decided to kill in that moment because he did grab his gun. He racked the slide, he switched the safety off, and he walked over to shoot Caitlin. And you know that Caitlin saw him as he picked up that gun, because he told you in his testimony, she was closer to it than he was. And you know because you heard that gun as it racked when Jill Terrio was showing it to you. You know Caitlin heard the racking of that slide. And for what the defendant would admit to in his testimony yesterday, she at least tried to ask him what he was going to do with it. But he didn't answer, because within seconds, he had shot her in the head, and Caitlin was dead on the sofa. The defendant shot and killed her without a second thought, and he never, not one time, said anything about Caitlin being a threat or a danger to anyone in that moment, not until he took the stand yesterday. Compare that to his actions as he described them in that story about the burglar in Nevada, a story that defense puts to you in their closing as explaining why he didn't call the police when Caitlin was in his house. But it does so much more than that. It shows you the difference in behavior that the defendant has, the restraint that he can show, the fact that his muscle memory isn't all that's to him. A stranger trying to break into his home received more consideration than the mother of his children. That stranger was told to leave. He told them to go. He called the police. The defendant warned the stranger that he was armed with a gun. He went to the length to open the door and show the stranger the gun. He sat and waited with his loaded gun while the stranger tried the door, tried the windows, tried to break in. His muscle memory didn't take over. He didn't just shoot. The defendant never fired. He didn't shoot. The stranger walked away unharmed. But the mother of his children, she had to die. You listened to his statement during the presentation of the case. You have it in evidence, and you can listen to it again as many times as you want. You'll have a laptop back there that hopefully has a working CD player. You can listen to it, you can rewind it, you can jump to spots you want to hear.
Okay, so it's giving it to me in negative, because I think the judge is going to instruct the jury. So please head on over if y'all want to watch with Paul reporting live from my sofa. I believe he is streaming this today. And so if there's a verdict tonight, we'll see. We'll see. Stay tuned. I might go live tonight if there is a verdict. I will schedule it. But yeah, so I'll put out something if there's a verdict today before 6 p.m. Eastern, I will put out I'll do a video tonight. If not, then I'll do a community post. Lisa, we are definitely praying for Jamaica. Hurricane Melissa is currently a Category 5 storm, which can produce catastrophic damage. I do hope people are staying tuned to all of the resources, and because this is likely going to hit the island very, very hard. And so prayers for anybody that is impacted. And I hope people listen to the government officials on where to go, how to stay safe, and all of those things. When I went to Jamaica a few years ago, it was right after a major hurricane, and the resort, like, they had a place where people could go to be safe. They also, their staff could go there too, to hunker down for big storms. And it also allowed the staff to be able to be there, because after a storm, the roads, a lot of things can be impacted. And so definitely thinking about those situations. The prosecutor in this case is doing a phenomenal job, and I am just so glad that they are trying to get justice for Caitlin. Now, was Caitlin perfect? Probably not. But to me, there was nothing that justified his behavior. The things he described, and I just rolled my eyes because, like, thinking of the things he described were minor annoyances. They were like, it sounded like a really bad custody dispute. And when two people have a child, and if they're not legally married, then there is no formal custody agreement. Most states, it's automatically 50-50, and they're not going to, the officer, nobody is going to step in. So even if one person is refusing to allow the other person to see the child, the officers are going to say, you need to go to court, get a formal custody agreement, because if there's something that says this parent, their visitation days are Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or like if there's a court order, the officers will enforce that. If there's no formal custody agreement, it's something that the two people have to decide. And like, it just, to me, a lot of his testimony was to make himself look better in the midst of the situation. And my heart breaks for the girls, for his 2 daughters, especially the youngest, who may never really have memories of her mom, and then for the oldest to know that it wasn't her fault. It was not at all her fault. And, trauma, you don't get to use your trauma to justify bad behavior. So to me, sometimes a person's trauma can help me understand, but it doesn't excuse, it doesn't minimize, it doesn't, eliminate justice. And so I do hope for justice uh, for for Caitlin in this situation. If anyone wants to help, Food for the Poor is an excellent organization. And so I know our church will also, so after major incidents like this, I know there are communities that will step up. And so I hope that people stand up and help out. Um, so sad for both of the girls. All right, I need to head into my appointments for the day. Like I said, if there's a verdict before 6, then come on back. I will be live again tonight. If there's not a verdict today, then there will be no more. There won't be a live tonight. And so I appreciate you all. I will see y'all next time. Bye.